Xiaofu walked step by step, her white clothes unstained by blood. The three spiritual swords floated beside her, no one daring to stop her. Unlike before, now under everyone's gaze, no one harbored malice. This was the power the spiritual swords had carved out. But soon, Xiaofu halted, to everyone's surprise. The three spiritual swords, previously floating, suddenly moved, shooting forward in a line, shining brightly, trembling incessantly. Even when nearly 100 Demon Sect experts appeared, the spiritual swords hadn't shown such a reaction. Xiaofu's heart trembled, sensing the sword's agitation. A voice filled with admiration sounded. Truly peerless spiritual swords, their spiritual abilities are rare in the world. The words were faint, as if from the horizon, but in the next instant they were right before them. The crowd was horrified, seeing a sinister figure standing in the distant sky, like the center of the world, drawing countless gazes. The man's face was broad and long, with a high, wide forehead and a prominent chin, giving a majestic impression. For some reason, even without revealing his identity, a name inexplicably surfaced in everyone's mind, as if their will was manipulated. Evil Emperor Xianxia? Everyone's eyes bulged, hearts racing uncontrollably, blood flowing backward. Some weaker individuals bled from their orifices, dying on the spot not by the man's intent, but by the overwhelming aura they couldn't withstand. Everything became clear. Who could command countless Demon Sect experts? They had thought Xiaofu had broken through to the land immortal realm to unite the Demon Sect. But now it was clear, it was this 200-year-old evil emperor who saw the Demon Sect experts as ants, driving them. A land immortal had arrived. The crowd retreated as if seeing a ghost. Land immortals were terrifying beings, standing atop the martial world, each a prodigy with a lifespan of 500 years, watching the rise and fall of the mortal world. Their lives unending, always at their peak. Thus, they were called land immortals. Song Yuanqiao's heart pounded, his yin-yang wuji skill barely calming him. He recalled his master's evaluation of Xianxia, calling him the most sinister of the sinister, disregarding even his own Demon Sect. A century ago, he nearly destroyed the Demon Sect. Now re-emerging, watching the Demon Sect experts slaughtered by spiritual swords, his intentions were unfathomable. Song Yuanqiao couldn't help but exclaim. Rumor had it the evil emperor was gravely injured by a formidable enemy a century ago, pouring his power into the evil emperor relic before dying. But it was merely a golden cicada shedding its shell, hiding for a century. Truly worthy of the evil emperor's name. Xianxia glanced over, and Song Yuanqiao felt as if struck by lightning, his head about to explode. Wu Deng is well informed. I've hidden for so long, yet someone remembers me. He touched the talisman in his hand, but before he could act, the spiritual swords beside Xiaofu trembled, severing the wave entirely. In an instant, the three spiritual swords vibrated, constructing a sword domain, separating Xianxia from the others. Only then did they feel normal, able to move freely, even the Heaven Man experts. The world often spoke of a chasm between Heaven Man and land immortal, but they hadn't experienced it firsthand. Seeing Xianxia today, they realized Heaven Man was no different from chickens, dogs, cattle, and sheep before a land immortal. Xiaofu's face showed hatred, realizing the man before her was the mastermind. The mighty evil emperor eyeing my little Amaze heaven-reliant sword, should I feel honored? Xiaofu was fearless, mocking freely. Xianxia's expression remained unchanged, not angered, merely stating facts. A century ago I lost something. Naturally, I must reclaim it. As for your Amei, it's just bad luck. The crowd was in an uproar. This nearly confirmed the heaven-reliant sword's connection to Yang Gong's treasure. The evil emperor had lost the evil emperor relic, stored in Yang Gong's treasure. Now he sought to reclaim it, to return to his peak or even further, naturally taking action. What they didn't know was a century ago, Xianxia had only sent Demon Sect experts to Amei, not acting himself. Unexpectedly, they failed, prompting his personal arrival. As for watching Xiaofu and others perish without action, it could only be said, what did the death of ants matter to him? He never cared. His goal was near, Xiaofu and others' lives depended on his mood. His mood was bad, so he didn't save them. Seeing Xianxia's indifference, treating countless Amei lives as ants, Xiaofu couldn't help but curse in anger. But Xianxia didn't care, treating all beings as pigs and dogs, only caring for himself. Xianxia focused intently on the three spiritual swords before him. He sensed a martial will attach to them, similar to the Buddhist monk's thoughts, but far superior. He had similar means, but admitted inferiority to the person before him. Wudang's little immortal was indeed a peerless opponent. Even someone as proud as Xianxia had to admit, this Wudang little immortal was a world-shaking prodigy. But he is not yet a land immortal, yet possessing such power, truly terrifying. In all of history, few could compare. Given time, upon ascending to the land immortal realm, he'd be among the top in the world. "Do you truly wish to stop me?" Xianxia addressed the spiritual swords calmly. He knew Ningqiang could sense his presence. Simultaneously, on Tianzhu Peak, in the Sutra Pavilion, Ningqiang, holding a Taoist scripture, awoke from his slumber, gazing skyward, as if meeting Xianxia's gaze across countless distances. "Evil Emperor Xianxia?" His lips curled slightly, his gaze returning to the scripture, showing no emotion, only deep interest. Truthfully, this was his first encounter with a land immortal. Though he wasn't present, he had invested part of his spiritual consciousness in the three spiritual swords. It was enough. Perhaps there would be unexpected gains. He looked forward to the land immortal. On a May mountain, as Xianxia's words fell, everyone looked uncertainly at the three spiritual swords aligned against the evil emperor, shocked. Could it be? The little immortal is here too. As they speculated, the three spiritual swords suddenly shone brightly, unparalleled sharpness rising, the sound of 10,000 swords resounding on a May mountain. Then they saw among the spiritual swords a young Taoist in black and white robes suddenly turn. He glanced at Xianxia. While Xiaofu bowed respectfully, the crowd was in an uproar. Looking closely, the spiritual swords were still swords. No young Taoist appeared. Xianxia's previously calm expression finally showed anger, his voice turning icy, seemingly provoked by Ningqiang's attitude. "Very well. I suppose the heaven-reliant sword is with you. Keep it for me. Today I'll destroy your spiritual swords, then visit Wudang to test the little immortal's mettle." To ascend to the land immortal realm, one must be proud. Even acknowledging Ningqiang as an equal before the battle, his confidence was unparalleled. Moreover, Ningqiang was only present through the spiritual swords. Xianxia was somewhat angry, feeling that after a century of seclusion, he was underestimated by a newcomer. Ningqiang's gaze made him uncomfortable, a gaze he usually directed at others. Buzz! A series of invisible roars echoed across a May mountain, earth-shaking waves rising from Xianxia, causing the entire mountain to tremble. Heavenman experts could mobilize the world's momentum, capable of withstanding thousands of troops. A land immortal was even more so. Resonating with the world, limitless, the power of heaven and earth augmenting them, capable of severing rivers and shattering mountains with a gesture. Xianxia merely stepped, unleashing overwhelming might. The sky's clouds rolled back, the howling wind ceased, all eyes instinctively focused on Xianxia. At this moment, the evil emperor was the center of the world, demanding attention. "Let's see your confidence." As the evil emperor's words fell, the three spiritual swords before Xiaofu trembled violently. The Xiaofu sword became a vermilion bird of divine fire. The golden edge sword became a white tiger of boundless slaughter. The Qingyuan sword became a green dragon of life and death. The crowd retreated repeatedly, fearing involvement, their eyes filled with both horror and anticipation. Who was stronger, Wudang's little immortal or the evil emperor who had dominated the great sway for 200 years? To be honest, everyone was uncertain. On one side was the evil Emperor Xianxia, who had dominated the great sway for 200 years. He had refined the legendary Tao heart-planting demon technique to its highest level, even innovating and forging his own path. On the other side was the current storm-stirring Wudang's little immortal in Ming. He could kill Heavenman experts as easily as chickens, and had even refined the Buddha's thoughts, surpassing land immortals in some respects. From Xianxia's attitude, it was clear that the little immortal's strength was on par with his own. With two such titans standing at the pinnacle of the 9 provinces, who could say for sure who would come out on top without a direct confrontation? The only point of judgment was that Ningqiang himself was not present. Could the 3 peerless spiritual swords fend off the evil emperor and protect Xiaofu? Everyone held their breath, even Song Yuanqiao and the others were unusually tense. They had confidence in their junior brother, but this was a land immortal and an old, established one at that. Ningqiang had never faced such a peerless expert before, so some concern was inevitable. The humming of the spiritual swords echoed through the heavens, causing a chorus of 10,000 swords. Xianxia frowned, casually pointing, and a wave of true power enveloped the area, silencing the sword chorus. The crowd was horrified, quickly protecting their swords, but some lower-quality swords shattered. Xianxia, hands behind his back, took another step forward. Boom! It sounded as if the earth and mountains were shaking. The three spiritual swords, transformed into divine beasts, roared and charged at Xianxia. The vermilion bird spewed divine fire, transforming into fiery sword aura. The azure dragon's tail lashed, raining down life-and-death-infused green sword aura. The white tiger roared, emitting a single golden sword light, its killing power surpassing the other two swords. The three-colored sword aura intertwined in the void, each unique yet incredibly sharp. At full power, the vermilion bird's fire, the azure dragon's wood, and the white tiger's metal sword aura revealed their fierce fangs. Xianxia's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Compared to the sword aura used against Xianxia and others, this was vastly different. It's the same sword aura, but several times more powerful, reaching the threshold of the land immortal realm. Using corresponding spiritual swords with corresponding attribute sword aura, their power sword. The sword aura illuminated Imei Mountain, tearing apart the previously overcast sky, creating more and more rifts, allowing sunlight to pour through. But it's useless against me, Xianxia confidently stomped in the void. In the next moment, countless black waves spread from his toes, a terrifying demonic aura enveloping the world. The demonic nature of the demon blade Ding Peng was rare in the martial world, but compared to Xianxia's, it was insignificant. The sky turned pitch black, Imei Mountain filled with a hellish demonic aura. Xianxia raised his hand, grasping, a giant demonic hand covering the sky, reaching for the three spiritual swords like the Buddha's five-finger mountain. The sword aura rained down like a storm, bombarding the demonic hand. The terrifying explosions echoed, the black demonic hand trembling, light flashing within. Suddenly, a golden light appeared first, the golden-edged sword's extreme killing power severing a giant finger, breaking free from the five-finger mountain. Then a green light, the Qingyuan sword embodying life and death, severed another giant finger. Finally, a red light, the Xiaofu sword's explosive power, though slightly inferior, also broke free from the five-finger mountain. As the two clashed, countless phenomena were triggered. The sky's clouds were riddled with holes, and Imei's ground was scarred. The crowd was dumbfounded, terrified by the land immortals' combat power, understanding why they stood at the pinnacle of the 9 provinces. Why do I feel? The little immortal's spiritual sword seemed slightly inferior. The crowd could clearly see the 3 spiritual swords, though breaking free from the demonic hand, had revealed their true forms, their light dimmed, while the demonic hand remained intact. The outcome was clear. Xianxia laughed. Mere spiritual swords, that's all? He laughed wildly, the Dao heart-planting demon technique being the ultimate demonic art. Having reached the highest level, his true power contained mental attacks, capable of erasing martial will. Knowing Ning Chang's method involved imbuing martial will into the spiritual swords, he was confident of victory. He believed the previous strike had eroded 30% of the martial will within the swords. A few more strikes, and the martial will would be completely eroded, rendering the swords mere dead objects. In the Sutra Pavilion, Ning Chang's eyes showed a hint of amusement. Capable of injuring spiritual consciousness, this Dao heart-planting demon technique is quite interesting. On Tianzhu Peak, 7 stars flashed and then vanished, a dense star power enveloping Ning Chang. The celestial phenomenon spirit refining technique transmitted this power to the spiritual swords, instantly restoring the slightly damaged spiritual consciousness to its peak, even surpassing it. On Imei Mountain, Xianxia's laughter abruptly stopped. He looked at the 3 spiritual swords, puzzled. The swords shone brighter than ever, the crowd murmuring, their expressions odd. Previously, Xianxia had similarly taunted after blocking a strike, only to be turned to blood mist by the sword's eruption. Now, the situation seemed eerily similar. Did the little immortal have a penchant for this? Before the crowd's thoughts settled, the 3 spiritual swords continued to shine, like 3 suns, 1 red, 1 green, 1 gold, illuminating Imei. As the light reached its peak, it gradually receded. When the swords reappeared in Xianxia's eyes, his pupils contracted. Each spiritual sword now had 2 additional swords beside it, forming a total of 9 swords. The crowd was in an uproar, eyes filled with disbelief. Only Xianxia sensed the truth. Those seem like sword projections. Xianxia grew unprecedentedly serious. The newly appeared swords seemed like projections, but their pressure was real, though not as overwhelming as the original 3 swords. Buzz! Before he could ponder further, the swords moved. Invisible waves spread, dispersing black clouds. The golden edge sword led, transforming into the white tiger, followed by the Xianxia sword projection as the vermilion bird and the Qingyuan sword projection as the azure dragon. The 3 spirits roared and charged. Though these spirits should be less terrifying than their full forms, Xianxia dared not act rashly, feeling an overwhelming pressure. Gritting his teeth, he decided to strike first. The black demonic aura formed another giant hand, reaching for the 3 spirits. But this time, the result was different. The 3 spirits roared, no longer fighting individually. Under the white tiger's lead, they formed a mysterious connection, their aura soaring. The divine beast spirits revealed their true forms, each sword with 2 projections, forming a ring, embodying the principles of heaven, earth, and man. The 3-talent sword formation, unveiled for the first time, its power far exceeded the previous 3 swords' combined might. The sword soared, emitting sword aura. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying sword aura roared, the previously formidable black demonic hand now seemed like paper. The sword aura pierced through, riddling the hand with holes. Xianxia's expression changed, unable to believe the drastic difference. Previously, the 3 swords barely penetrated his hand, but now one sword with 2 projections easily did so. More astonishingly, his Dao heart-planting demon's true power, which eroded mental will, failed this time. What kind of sword formation is this? He was speechless with shock. He could tell it was a profound sword formation, but there was no time to think. The sword aura rained down, merging into a silver-gray aura, terrifyingly lethal and explosive. Xianxia roared, losing his composure for the first time. The demonic aura surged, his fists and palms striking, barely resisting the silver-gray sword aura. The crowd was speechless, the situation reversing too quickly. The evil emperor had the upper hand, but once the swords formed projections, it reversed. Moreover, the other 2 swords and 4 projections hadn't even joined the fray. As if sensing the crowd's thoughts, the remaining swords and projections shot forward, forming sword formations. In an instant, 3 sets of 3-talent sword formations took shape in the sky, forming 3 sword rings enveloping Xianxia. The silver-gray sword aura tripled. Xianxia felt a chilling crisis. 1 sword formation was manageable, but 3 brought immense pressure. The silver-gray sword aura pierced through the demonic aura, forcing Xianxia to retreat. He continuously struck with demonic hands, creating deep pits in a May mountain. Occasionally, a stray sword aura would slice through, creating fissures as if to split a May in 2. The crowd was horrified, the battle's aftermath revealing the land immortal's terrifying power. But seeing Xianxia's plight under the sword aura rain, they were awed by Ningchang. This was the mighty evil emperor, an old land immortal of the great sway, yet so desperate by Ningchang's hands. The little immortal's talent is unparalleled, truly rare in the world. The crowd marveled but dared not speak, fearing Xianxia's wrath. Xianxia roared skyward, losing his previous disdainful gaze. In short, he was breaking down. Ningchang, you're good, very good. Xianxia's eyes were bloodshot, trembling with rage. He had never been so humiliated, not even after a century of seclusion. His expression turned sinister. He spat a mouthful of demonic black blood, mixing it with his demonic aura, enhancing its power. But that wasn't all. Xianxia rose, absorbing the demonic aura and black clouds into his body. In an instant, an unparalleled true demon appeared before everyone. Zhang Lingyu gasped, exclaiming, This is the true demon body." Seeing Song Yuanqiao's puzzled look, he explained urgently. "My master once said the Demon Sect tried to emulate the Buddhist Golden Buddha body. This true demon body must be the evil emperor's gain from a century of seclusion. The true demon body maximizes demonic power, forming a true demon body, though made of true energy, it functions like flesh, exponentially increasing power." Seeing the Tenjiang true demon, the crowd was shocked. Such a sight was like a myth, explaining the ancient tales of immortals and gods. Martial experts at their peak indeed possessed extraordinary abilities. Xiaofu looked up, seeing Xianxia's true form enveloped by the true demon demonic aura forming its limbs, its power overwhelming. The demonic voice echoed, "Ningchang, today I will destroy your spiritual swords. Tomorrow I will destroy your true form at Wudang." The Tenjiang true demon moved, stirring the wind and clouds. The previously unstoppable silver-gray sword aura now met resistance. Though still penetrating the demonic aura, it was less effective. Xianxia laughed wildly, his eyes filled with killing intent. All of you will be buried here today. The true demon's gaze terrified the crowd, chilling them to the bone. Xianxia, feeling humiliated, didn't want this news to spread, intending to bury everyone. Faces turned pale, fear gripping their hearts. Even Heavenman experts would be powerless against the true demon, likely dying instantly. The true demon waved, shattering the silver-gray sword aura. Its claw reached for the spiritual swords, intending to crush them. In the Sutra Pavilion, Ning Chang closed the Taoist scripture, Jin Ling offering spiritual tea. Ning Chang sipped the tea, his expression serene. This true demon body is quite insightful, but you're not at your peak. The spiritual feedback told him Xianxia wasn't at his peak, explaining his need for the evil emperor relic. He chuckled, gazing skyward. On a May mountain, the spiritual swords shone, the 3 sword rings rotating rapidly, forming a triangle above the true demon. A profound aura rose, the 3 talents of heaven, earth, and man in place, forming the complete 3-talent sword formation. The crowd was stunned, seeing the sword formations intertwining, creating a massive sword ring connecting heaven and earth. Then, immense silver-gray sword aura descended, slashing at the true demon Xianxia. Impossible! Xianxia was horrified, striking skyward, but it was futile. The first sword aura severed his right arm, the second severed his left arm, the third severed his right leg, the fourth severed his left leg. In just 4 strikes, the Tenjang true demon dissipated, revealing Xianxia's true form, his aura weakened, limbs severed. His pitiful state reflected in the crowd's eyes, making their hearts race. The mighty evil emperor reduced to a human swine. The crowd gasped. Zhang Lingyu couldn't believe his eyes. A land immortal defeated so easily. The little immortal's strength was unbelievably overwhelming. Everyone stared blankly at the scene in the sky, falling into a daze. Xianxia, displaying his Tenjang true demon body, was undoubtedly powerful, making everyone feel as if the end of the world was approaching. His every move could shatter mountains, as evidenced by the collapse of a May mountain. Yet this mighty evil emperor was reduced to a human swine. Everyone gasped, swallowing involuntarily as if they had seen a ghost. In the sky, Xianxia's eyes also showed disbelief. The Tenjang true demon body was the result of a century of secluded cultivation. Even though his current power was far from his peak, the true demon body still made him formidable, stronger than a newly ascended land immortal. He had thought that with the true demon body, crushing the spiritual swords before him would be effortless. But he never expected the sword formation to have such a hidden ace. He vaguely understood that it was a nested sword formation, simple in theory but incredibly difficult in practice. The 3-talent sword formation alone was already beyond his comprehension, let alone nesting another within it. This was simply inconceivable. Unconsciously, Xianxia's gaze at the spiritual swords was tinged with fear. What kind of monster is this? He couldn't believe it. A martial artist who hadn't even ascended to the land immortal realm was this strong. Suddenly, a horrifying thought crossed his mind. Could this little immortal be the reincarnation of an ancient monster? Xianxia gasped, feeling immense fear. It was well known that even the land immortals of the 9 provinces had a lifespan of only 500 years. Despite life-extending methods, some prodigies, unwilling to perish, researched various ways to extend their lives, including reincarnation. While some might retain past life memories, it was unheard of. Xianxia had heard of reincarnation but never witnessed it. Seeing Ning Chang's monstrous talent, he couldn't help but speculate. Through the spiritual swords, he seemed to see those indifferent eyes piercing through time and space, landing on him. The mighty evil emperor panicked. But now, what terrified him more was the dreadful sword formation above. With his limbs severed, his state had deteriorated drastically. If 2 more sword auras fell, he wouldn't survive, likely turning to dust on the spot. I can't die here, I haven't reclaimed my evil emperor relic. Xianxia was unwilling. His eyes showed pain, then resoluteness. Little immortal, you are indeed a peerless prodigy. Today I, Xianxia, admit defeat. The evil emperor's voice echoed through the sky. He glanced deeply at the terrifying sword formation above, his head and torso still moving freely under the influence of true power. With a sudden, piercing shout, "Heavenly demon disintegration technique!" 3 mouthfuls of true demon blood were spat out, making his already poor state even worse, barely hanging by a thread. As the fifth massive silver-gray sword aura descended, everyone thought the evil emperor was making a final stand. They were stunned to see his remaining body streaking towards the horizon, leaving a trail of blood. He had used the heavenly demon disintegration technique not to fight but to escape. The crowd gaped in disbelief. The mighty evil emperor of the Great Sway, fleeing in such a manner. The crowd was speechless, unable to express their shock. The silver-gray sword aura pursued, visibly drawing more blood, but Xianxia's body disappeared into the distant sky. His speed after using the heavenly demon disintegration technique was astonishing. In the Sutra Pavilion, Ning Chang chuckled, not expecting Xianxia to be so spineless, fleeing without a shred of dignity. Unfortunately, the spiritual swords have limitations. If I were there, even the heavenly demon disintegration technique wouldn't save him. But he didn't dwell on it. With his limbs severed and using the heavenly demon disintegration technique, Xianxia was now incredibly weak, his losses severe. Recovering from such a fundamental loss wouldn't be easy. Ning Chang suspected Xianxia had lost his essence a century ago, along with the evil emperor relic. Now, even a strong heaven man could threaten Xianxia. Even if he escaped, he posed no danger. Moreover, the last sword aura had left a spiritual seed in Xianxia's body. If Ning Chang wished, he could track and kill him anytime. But there was no need. He was interested in the evil emperor relic. Legend had it that each generation of Demon Sect holy lords infused their true energy into it before dying, making it immensely powerful. For a Demon Sect member, using it could make breakthroughs as easy as drinking water. For Ning Chang, the evil emperor relic was likely as useful as the Buddhist relic he had obtained, perhaps even more potent. Xianxia, heavily injured, will surely seek the evil emperor relic to restore his power. A ready-made laborer. Ning Chang smiled, finding it himself would be troublesome. Letting Xianxia find and bring it to him was much better. Though the dragon-slaying saber and heaven-reliant sword were said to be keys to Yang Gong's treasure, Ning Chang suspected there were other ways to open it. With Xianxia's skills, finding it wouldn't be difficult. He could wait on Tianzhu Peak. Therefore, Ning Chang felt no urgency about Xianxia's escape. He posed no threat to him or Wudang. However, the severed limbs of Xianxia are quite interesting. His spiritual sense detected some mysteries within those limbs. Understanding them might help him create the body technique he had always wanted. On a May mountain, the three spiritual swords descended, their light enveloping Xianxia's severed limbs, bringing them before Xiaofu. Xiaofu, still immersed in the shocking battle, couldn't believe the little immortal had forced the evil emperor to flee. Seeing the sword light carrying the evil emperor's limbs, the clever woman quickly wrapped them in cloth taken from the Demon Sect experts. Ning Chang nodded slightly. Xiaofu had a certain spirituality, able to communicate simply with the spiritual swords, a unique trait. He decided to give her an opportunity. He planned to cultivate a spiritual herb garden in the back mountain. If Xiaofu was willing, she could manage it, becoming a reclusive spiritual herb farmer. The spiritual swords shrank to palm size, respectfully held by Xiaofu. With her hatred gone, she felt lost. But since the spiritual swords wanted her to bring the evil emperor's limbs to Wudang, she would comply. She was immensely grateful to Ning Chang. Xiaofu glanced around, her eyes emotionless. After this experience, the martial world's intrigues seemed meaningless. In white robes, she descended the mountain slowly. The crowd watched with complex, reverent eyes. Only after her figure disappeared did they dare to breathe loudly. The pressure from the spiritual swords had been immense. Emotions surged in their hearts, showing various expressions. Looking around, Imei Mountain had changed drastically, filled with deep pits and countless scars, the sword aura slicing away parts of the mountain, even loosening the mountain itself. The crowd was horrified. This was the power of a land immortal. The aftermath of their battle nearly shattered the mountain. If not for the spiritual sword's protection, they would have perished. They looked at the place where the spiritual swords had confronted Xianxia, their eyes filled with reverence for Ning Chang. It was here that the spiritual swords formed an unparalleled sword formation, severing the evil emperor's limbs, forcing him to use the heavenly demon disintegration technique to flee. Someone couldn't help but whisper, "The little immortal is truly the greatest prodigy of all time." Such praise went unchallenged, with everyone agreeing. Not yet a land immortal, yet he defeated the renowned evil emperor of the Great Sway. Such unparalleled talent, if I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it. Indeed, even now I feel like I'm dreaming, as if everything that happened was an illusion. Don't forget, the little immortal wasn't even here. If he were, the evil emperor wouldn't have had a chance to escape. The crowd's hearts skipped a beat. It was too shocking. Defeating a land immortal was already extraordinary, but killing one as a heaven man was beyond belief. They dared not think further. Such unparalleled talent, even the martial emperor who suppressed Liang might not compare. Though he also defeated a land immortal as a heaven man, it wasn't as decisive, and his opponent wasn't as strong as the evil emperor. I look forward to the day the little immortal ascends to the land immortal realm. What a sight that will be! The martial artists couldn't help but marvel, feeling a mix of emotions. They had thought today would reveal the truth about the heaven-reliant sword, but it turned into a battlefield between the little immortal and the evil emperor. As for the heaven-reliant sword, who would dare ask now? It was undoubtedly in the little immortal's possession, possibly refined to ashes by pure yang true fire. Even if it still existed, no one would dare covet it. The evil emperor's fate was a stark reminder. In the martial world, absolute power meant no one would covet your treasures, seeing them as symbols of your status. The martial artists descended the mountain, eager to spread the news. Zhang Lingyu looked at Song Yuanqiao and the others, smiling wryly. The little immortal is truly astonishing. Every time I see him, he shatters my understanding. Song Taoist, you must have known, keeping it from me all this time. Song Yuanqiao smiled awkwardly. He knew nothing. He was also in shock, unable to calm down. Who knew his junior brother had become so monstrous, even able to toy with land immortals? He could only say, with the old celestial master at Mount Longhu, my junior brother still has a long way to go. Zhang Lingyu glared at him. At this rate, Ning Chang might surpass his master sooner than expected. The group descended the mountain, the renowned heaven man experts nodding respectfully to the Wudang disciples, letting them go first. Ning Chang's sword formation slaying the evil emperor would undoubtedly elevate Wudang's prestige. This was just a small glimpse. In the martial world, news spread rapidly. The events on Amei Mountain reached every corner of Ming and even the Great Sui, giving everyone a new understanding of Ning Chang, the little immortal of Wudang. The background wasn't just anyone. It was the evil Emperor Xiang Yushan, who had dominated the Great Sui for 200 years. Discussions erupted everywhere in the two empires, the event too shocking. The evil Emperor Xiang Yushan, presumed dead a century ago, has reappeared. Not only reappeared, but was beaten like a dog by the little immortal of Wudang, Ning Chang. It said the little immortal didn't even leave Tianzhu Peak, yet his spiritual swords, wielded by Xiaofu, nearly killed the evil emperor. Is there really such a monstrous person? If I recall, the little immortal hasn't even ascended to the land immortal realm. That's what makes his talent so extraordinary. A heaven man defeating a land immortal, just thinking about it chills me. Could it be a grand era is approaching? Such a prodigy unheard of. Everyone was speechless with shock. The events on Amei Mountain were too unbelievable. Ning Chang had already been immensely powerful when he refined the Buddha's thoughts with heavenly fire at Wudang. Some had speculated that Ning Chang's combat power was not inferior to a land immortal, bestowing him the title of Little Immortal. Some even suspected that if Ning Chang had been present, the evil emperor wouldn't have left Amei Mountain alive. Eyes turned towards Wudang with deep reverence. This time, even the land immortals were shaken. The Empress's eyes showed confusion as she asked. Xiang Yushan is said to have been severely injured by the little immortal, with his limbs severed. He is not even a match for you now, master. Why do we need to seek the little immortal's help? Zhu Yuyan stood up, her gaze distant as she looked out the window. You don't understand. Xiang Yushan has been dominating the Great Sui for 200 years. He's not that simple. If we confront him now, we might end up becoming his magic seeds to restore his power. He will recover eventually. With the lesson from the lone sword demon of the Great Song a century ago, he must have prepared numerous magic seeds. Only if the little immortal is willing to suppress him can we completely eliminate this threat. Listening to her master's explanation, the Empress's small mouth opened slightly, realizing she was still too young. After all, those who ascended to the land immortal realm were not simple characters. Then, how can we persuade the little immortal to help us? The Empress's bright eyes fell into contemplation. She found it somewhat unrealistic. It would be fortunate if Wudang didn't discriminate against the Yin Kui sect. How could they help them for no reason? Zhu Yuyan turned, her eyes firm. Yang Gong's treasure. If we offer it, the little immortal will have a reason to act. This time, Xiaofu offered the heaven-reliant sword and received the little immortal's spiritual swords. I suspect the little immortal might be interested in Yang Gong's treasure. What if he's not interested? The Empress asked. Then we must find it before Xiang Yushan does. If we reach a desperate situation, we can only use the evil Emperor relic to force a breakthrough and see if we can succeed. The Empress fell silent. Everyone in the Demon Sect knew that forcibly using the evil Emperor relic without reaching the land immortal realm had a higher chance of exploding than succeeding. Great Song Dynasty Shaolin Temple outside the Sutra Pavilion, an old monk paused his sweeping, hearing the discussions within the temple. The gaunt old monk's eyes showed shock, unable to calm down for a long time. It seems this benefactor Ning is truly a reincarnated immortal, such karma, such suffering. His face showed a hint of sorrow. Previously on Tianzhu Peak, his Buddha's thoughts were forcibly refined by Ning Changj, causing some injuries. These injuries had just healed, and he had planned to visit Wudang to resolve the karma. But now it seemed he needed to fully recover and comprehend a protective martial art before going. Otherwise, he might not leave Tianzhu Peak alive, which he did not desire. The old monk's sweeping became stiff. The sword formation that had ravaged the evil emperor made his heart race. He doubted his golden body could withstand its power. In the shadows, Bo and Xiao Yuanshan, watching the old monk, showed shock in their eyes. They knew why the old monk was shaken. Is the little immortal of Wudang truly such a monster? The thought arose involuntarily in their minds. Great Song Dynasty in an unnamed valley, a ragged old man resembling a wild man was chasing a wild boar. The wooden stick in his hand seemed to have eyes. No matter how the boar dodged, it couldn't escape. The wild man laughed heartily, playing with the boar, full of joy. Suddenly he froze, the boar fleeing in panic unnoticed, as the discussions of passing martial artists reached his ears. A sharp light flashed in the wild man's eyes as he muttered, "Xiang Yushan, whom I once severed in half, has reappeared, only to have his limbs severed by a 9-year-old boy. Marvelous, marvelous." He couldn't help but laugh. This man was none other than the sword demon Dugu Kyubai of the Great Song Dynasty. Dugu Kyubai had pursued the pinnacle of swordsmanship all his life, challenging sword masters everywhere in his youth, never tasting defeat. After ascending to the land immortal realm, he was known as the Sword Demon, having fought several sword immortals without falling behind. This little immortal is quite interesting. Although Xiang Yushan isn't at his peak, severing his limbs requires sword immortal level strength. The Ming Dynasty is indeed a land of prodigious swordsmen. Zai Zio Feng of Divine Sword Manor, Yi Gacheng of White Cloud City, and Zaimen Chuixu of Wanmei Manor are all excellent swordsmen. Now another little immortal from Wudang has emerged. Marvelous, marvelous. I look forward to the day you reach the land immortal realm. Dugu Kyubai laughed heartily, his eyes filled with anticipation and desire. A burst of unmatched sword intent erupted, riddling the valley with holes. He looked to the sky, hoping to advance further in swordsmanship. Neither Zai Ziofeng nor Yi Gacheng had truly piqued his interest. But Ning Changj, for the first time, stirred his fighting spirit. Not yet a land immortal, yet able to easily crush Xiang Yushan, such extraordinary talent shook him. But not now. Dugu Kyubai never liked bullying the weak. He would wait until Ning Changj was strong enough before making a move. "Little eagle, let's slowly make our way to Ming." Dugu Kyubai resumed his wild man guise, laughing. A giant eagle circled in the sky, crying joyfully. Man and eagle headed towards Ming, carefree and unrestrained. Mongolia esoteric sect forbidden grounds upon hearing that Ning Changj had severed Xiang Yushan's limbs on a Mei mountain. Jinlun couldn't help but roar in disbelief. How is this possible? How can he be so strong? His eyes were filled with disbelief, more so with unwillingness and despair. He had endured inhuman torture to withstand the esoteric sect monk's empowerment, but his enemy's strength had become terrifying. How could he go to Wudang to retrieve his master's remains? He gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot, his obsession gnawing at his Buddhist heart. Beside him, a gaunt great Dharma king chanted a Buddhist mantra, speaking slowly, "Foolish child, this may not be a bad thing. At least you have a strong ally. The evil emperor shares your goal. Find him and you might have a chance together." Seeing Jinlun, who was on the verge of becoming a demon Buddha, the great Dharma king felt immense bitterness. He regretted helping Jinlun but had no choice, as Jinlun was the only Buddha child in recent years. Now, the only way was to remove Jinlun's obsession, allowing the esoteric sect to gain a living Buddha unseen for centuries. Great Dharma King, please help me find the evil emperor. The great Dharma King nodded faintly. Jinlun's eyes were firm as he continued his meditation. An elderly monk approached, chanting a Buddhist mantra, pouring his lifelong power into Jinlun, his face trembling, his body withering yet unwavering, his eyes terrifyingly determined. The martial world was in turmoil. The news of Ning Chang severing Xiang Yushin's limbs on a Mei mountain spread, raising Ning Chang's prestige to new heights in Ming and the Great Sui. Countless experts learned of the terrifying power of the little immortal, Ning Chang, knowing the evil emperor's strength well. The ability to suppress the evil emperor spoke volumes about Ning Chang's might. Land immortals marveled. Invincible experts awaited Ning Chang's ascension to the land immortal realm, hoping for a worthy opponent. Forces like the Demon Sect and Peach Blossom Island also heard of Ning Chang's deeds. Wang Qingyang and Huang Yayashi recalled finding an abandoned infant at the foot of Mount Hua 10 years ago, marveling at how he had grown so powerful, surpassing them in an instant. They smiled bitterly, wondering what might have been if they had taken Ning Chang in. But they knew it was Ning Chang's choice to follow Zhang Sanfeng. They hoped their agreement with Zhang Sanfeng still stood. They began making preparations, knowing they must show proper respect if Ning Chang visited. The martial world was in motion. On Tianzhu Peak, Ning Chang remained calm, indifferent to the turmoil he had caused. Lending Xiaofu the sword was merely a whim. Now that it was done, he could refine the heaven-reliant sword with peace of mind. In the Sutra Pavilion, pure Yang true fire had been burning for several days. Today, 2 beams of spiritual light shot into the sky, one blue, one yellow. Wudang disciples looked on with reverence. Those with higher cultivation could see the essence within the light beams. 2 spiritual swords. One was azure blue, its sharpness like waves, one after another as vast and awe-inspiring as the ocean. The other was dark yellow, equally sharp but with a heavy presence, like a mountain pressing down, making it hard to breathe. Little Uncle has forged 2 more spiritual swords, the Wudang disciples exclaimed in shock. Though Song Yuanqiao and Zhai Xiaofu had not yet returned, the news of the spiritual swords severing the evil emperor on a Mei mountain had already spread. Now that Little Uncle has forged 2 more peerless spiritual swords, the combined power of the 5 element swords must be terrifying. The disciples' admiration was palpable. They bowed respectfully towards the Sutra Pavilion. The spiritual light in the sky gradually dissipated. Inside the Sutra Pavilion, Ning Chang looked at the 2 new spiritual swords before him, satisfaction in his eyes. These were the water and earth spiritual swords, forged by refining the heaven-reliant sword and various collected water and earth spiritual materials. You shall be the azure water sword. The azure blue sword hummed joyfully, circling Ning Chang. You shall be the sturdy earth sword. The dark yellow sword trembled slightly, floating before Ning Chang. Ning Chang smiled. His forging skills had surpassed his past self, and these new spiritual swords already possessed considerable spirituality. He noticed that the different elements gave the swords distinct personalities. The Xiaofu sword was explosive, the golden edge sword aloof, the Qingyuan sword gentle, the azure water sword lively, and the sturdy earth sword steady. With a sword incantation, the 2 new swords flew, creating afterimages. Ning Chang nodded in satisfaction. Lending Zhai Xiaofu the sword had allowed him to obtain the heaven-reliant sword and successfully forge the final 2 spiritual swords. With this, the 5-element spiritual swords were complete. With the 5-element spiritual swords complete, the next step is to integrate the 5 elements divine sword qi and further create the 5 elements sword formation. This will extend the 5 elements Dao into my eternal evergreen technique, achieving the 5 elements foundation and perfecting my cultivation. Ning Chang contemplated his path, carefully calculating, ensuring no mistakes, and smiled, his Dao heart at ease. Sometimes the pursuit of the Dao required following nature. Senior brother and Zhai Xiaofu should be returning to Wudang soon. It's time to create the remaining 2 sword qi. To integrate the 5 elements sword qi, all 5 elements must be complete. With the new swords, it was the best time to comprehend them. Ning Chang finished his spiritual tea, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. With the foundation of the previous 3 sword qis, he had a rough idea, only lacking a medium and opportunity. Days passed in the blink of an eye. Beside Ning Chang, the blue and yellow sword lights circled, filling the air with Taoist charm. Having read nearly 10,000 Taoist scriptures, Ning Chang's foundation was incredibly rich. When the right opportunity arose, countless spiritual insights would burst forth. System prompt. The Azure Water Sword is a water spiritual sword. You comprehend its water spiritual power, gaining new insights into swordsmanship and the water Tao. Combining them, you realize the endless nature of swordsmanship, like waves of the sea, and the immovable nature of the black tortoise. You create the Taoist technique Ren Water Black Tortoise Sword Qi. System prompt. The sturdy earth sword is an earth spiritual sword. You comprehend its earth spiritual power, gaining new insights into swordsmanship and the earth Tao. Combining them, you realize the heaviness of swordsmanship, like mountains supporting the sky, and the stabilizing nature of the Qilin. You create the Taoist technique Wu Earth Qilin Sword Qi. Above the Sutra Pavilion, the visions of the black tortoise and Qilin appeared, causing the Wudang disciples to bow in reverence. Though they couldn't fully understand, they knew their little uncle had made another breakthrough, and it was extraordinary. In the disciples' hearts, Ning Chang's was a godlike figure, surpassing even Zhang Sanfeng. Ning Chang's put away the spiritual swords, his spiritual sense suddenly alert, a smile forming on his lips. Double happiness. It seems I can complete the 5 elements divine sword Qi today. His spiritual sense enveloped Tianzhu Peak, clearly seeing Song Yuanqiao and Jai Xiaofu arriving at the mountain gate. With a gesture, the Xiaofu, Golden Edge, and Qingyuan swords flew towards the Sutra Pavilion. Jai Xiaofu, sensing the sword's movement, was startled but stopped chasing them when she saw their destination. She bowed, tightening her grip on the evil emperor's limbs, and walked respectfully towards the Sutra Pavilion. Song Yuanqiao and the others exchanged glances and followed Jai Xiaofu. During their return, they had tried to communicate with Jai Xiaofu, but she spoke little, giving them a sense of seeing through worldly affairs. Inside the Sutra Pavilion, with the return of the Xiaofu, Golden Edge, and Qingyuan swords, 5 spiritual swords now circled Ning Chang. 1 red, 1 gold, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 yellow. Their spiritual light intertwined, creating a profound harmony. With the 5 elements gathered, Ning Chang saw the innate connection between the swords, mutually generating and restraining each other. Before he could act, the swords had already begun to resonate. Excellent, Ning Chang laughed. This confirmed his direction was correct. The 5 elements sword Qi was a natural progression. With a gesture, his voice echoed like Taoist decrees. Qingyuan to the east, representing Yiwood Azure Dragon. Golden Edge to the west, representing Zheng Metal White Tiger. Xiaofu to the south, representing Cayenne Fire Vermilion Bird. Azure Water to the north, representing Ren Water Black Tortoise. Sturdy Earth to the center, representing Wu Earth Qilin. The 5 spiritual swords shot into the sky, transforming into the 5 elements divine beasts, stabilizing the 4 directions and the center. Their elemental powers flowed and intertwined, forming a profound connection. Ning Chang observed the flow, entanglement, and fusion of the elemental powers. Countless spiritual insights rose in his mind, the principles of the 5 elements Tao filling his thoughts as he entered a profound state of enlightenment. At Wudang, atop Tianzhu Peak, Song Yuanqiao, Jai Xiaofu, and the others had just arrived outside the Sutra Pavilion when they saw beams of spiritual light shooting into the sky, divided into 5 colors: red, green, gold, blue, and yellow. Each was distinct, yet they seemed interconnected. The 5 beams soared into the sky, even faintly connecting with the 7 stars gathering spirit formation that suppressed Tianzhu Peak, channeling star power into them. What is this? Song Yuanqiao and the others were shocked. Then they witnessed a breathtaking scene. From the 5 colored beams, divine beasts emerged. The azure dragon in the east, the white tiger in the west, the vermilion bird in the south, the black tortoise in the north, and the Qilin in the center. These are the 5 divine beasts. The Wudang disciples were all stunned. They had seen the 5 divine beasts before, especially Song Yuanqiao and Jai Xiaofu, who had witnessed the 3 spirits forming a sword formation that severed the evil emperor's limbs on a May mountain. Those limbs were still wrapped in Jai Xiaofu's bundle, but the last 2 spirits were new to them. Mo Shengu was the first to react, his eyes filled with joy. It seems our junior brother has successfully forged the remaining 2 spiritual swords. Now that the 5 elements swords are complete, he must have comprehended the 5 elements sword Qi. We're in for a treat today. Yin Liding nodded repeatedly. It seems we returned at just the right time. Jai Xiaofu was shocked and confused. Song Yuanqiao explained with a smile. Miss Jai, you may not know, but our junior brother once mentioned the 5 elements sword Qi to us. The 3 spiritual swords he bestowed upon you were part of it. Now it seems the last 2 swords are complete. Our junior brother has great ambitions. The five-element spiritual swords are the complete form. You can look forward to it." He spoke with anticipation, focusing intently on the sky. Xiaofu's mouth hung open, her eyes filled with disbelief. The five-element spiritual swords were the complete form. If three swords nearly severed the evil emperor, what unimaginable power would the five-element swords possess? Her reverence for Ningchang deepened, seeing him as a godlike figure. In the sky, the five divine beasts began to evolve. The dragon roared, the phoenix cried, the tortoise bellowed, the tiger growled, and the killin roared. The commotion atop Tianju Peak was immense. The light beams beneath the five divine beasts began to merge, forming a five-colored divine light, nurturing a strange sword chi within. The sword chi carried an incredible sharpness, as if it could tear through space and time. The scene was so overwhelming that everyone forgot their surroundings. Disciples practicing swordsmanship froze, their swords suspended in midair. Disciples fetching water dropped their buckets, and those conversing fell silent. Everyone was completely immersed in the awe-inspiring sight. Inside the Sutra Pavilion, Ningchang had long been drawn into a wondrous state of enlightenment by the merging of the five elements' mystical aura. The profound truths of the Taoist scriptures he had read flooded his mind. The heavens have five elements: water, fire, metal, wood, and earth. They change with time, creating all things. Their spirits are called the five emperors. The five elements generate and extinguish each other with no beginning or end. The numbers of the five elements vary, creating countless things that fill the heavens and earth, never ceasing, using five things to return to the five elements, and the five elements to create five insects can be described in words. Ningchang comprehended fully, as if the last speck of dust on a glass lamp had been wiped away, revealing its true form. The five elements generate and restrain each other, originally one, then divided into different attributes. To refuse them requires a medium, such as my spiritual sense, spiritual power, and spiritual flesh, which are essence, energy, and spirit. Alternatively, reversing yin and yang and integrating them is another new method. But that is a direction for future efforts. For now, integrating essence, energy, and spirit will achieve the five elements' divine sword chi. Ningchang couldn't help but laugh, his laughter filled with joy, echoing from the Sutra Pavilion across Tianju Peak. System prompt. You use the Yi Wood Azure Dragon Sword Chi, Zheng Metal White Tiger Sword Chi, Wu Earth Killin Sword Chi, and other single-attribute sword chis as a foundation. Combining your understanding of the five elements Tao and using essence, energy, and spirit as a medium, you successfully integrate the five elements, creating the Taoist sword technique, five elements divine sword chi. On Tianju Peak, the Wudang disciples heard Ningchang's joyful laughter, understanding its significance. They were infected by his joy and couldn't help but smile, shouting in unison, "We congratulate little uncle on comprehending the divine sword chi." The unity of Wudang was evident, their essence, energy, and spirit seemingly united. This unplanned congratulation burst forth naturally. Ningchang laughed even more heartily. With a movement, he appeared high in the sky. The comprehension of the five elements' divine sword chi had cleared his mind. He sat cross-legged in the void, beginning to teach the Wudang disciples. "Today, I have gained some insights. I will teach you about the five elements and yin-yang." Instantly, the disciples' eyes lit up with fervor. No matter what they were doing, they stopped and sat down, listening intently. Even Song Yunkeo and the others were no exception. Xiaofu followed suit, sitting cross-legged with the others. Ningchang's voice, like the sound of the Tao, echoed in their ears. The profound truths of the five elements and yin-yang were spoken plainly, yet they instantly enlightened the listeners, like a divine revelation, awakening them from a great dream. The spiritual power of the Taoist technique quietly operated, countless visions unfolding in the disciples' minds. Some saw the vermilion bird burning the heavens, pushing the fire Tao to its extreme. Some saw the black tortoise stabilizing the seas, pushing the water Tao to its extreme. And some with higher comprehension saw water and fire lotuses born from the void, evolving into sword lights of extreme sharpness. In short, everyone gained insights, but each insight was different. This was what Ningchang often referred to as the arrival of fate. At some point, Ningchang's figure disappeared from the sky. The disciples were still immersed in their enlightenment. When they awoke, a series of breakthrough auras and explosions echoed like a chain reaction, unending. Without a doubt, the strength of the Wudang disciples had greatly increased. They bowed respectfully towards the Sutra Pavilion. We thank little uncle for the grace of teaching the Tao. Song Yuanqiao and the others also awoke from their enlightenment, their eyes filled with joy. As the highest in cultivation, they had gained the most. Once they fully absorbed these gains, even the weakest of the Wudang 7 heroes, Mo Shengu, could break through to the Grandmaster realm. With the Beidou 7 stars formation, they could even contend with peerless Heavenman experts. However, Ning Chang's gaze fell on Xiaofu, showing some surprise. With his discerning eyes, he could see that the greatest gain from this lecture was not the Wudang 7 heroes but this woman, whose cultivation was among the lowest. She indeed has some unique fate. Ning Chang nodded slightly. He had noticed Xiaofu's unique spirituality during the time she carried the spiritual sword. She could communicate slightly with the spiritual sword, a rare trait. At least among the current Wudang disciples, Ning Chang had not seen such a presence. Such a person would be better suited to tending spiritual herbs for him. Let's see what she thinks. Ning Chang didn't like forcing others. If she couldn't grasp the opportunity, he wouldn't force it upon her. You may come in. The doors of the Sutra Pavilion opened, and Jin Ling led Song Yuanqiao, Xiaofu, and the others inside. Song Yuanqiao and the others were familiar with the place and felt at ease. Xiaofu knelt before Ning Chang, kowtowing respectfully and presenting the bundle on her back. Thank you, little immortal, for the grace of the sword. Xiaofu is eternally grateful and has no way to repay you. In my next life, I will repay your great kindness as an ox or horse. She kowtowed 9 times, making Song Yuanqiao and the others nod in approval, feeling some pity for her. She was indeed a tough and unfortunate girl. She should have grown slowly under her sect's protection, but her sect was massacred overnight, and her appearance was ruined, a series of despairing blows. Yet in such dire circumstances, Xiaofu didn't collapse. Instead, she made her way to Wudang and borrowed the spiritual sword from Ning Chang, showing her determination. Ning Chang accepted her bow and pointed, while storing the evil emperor's limbs in his yuan ring. He said calmly, "Now that this matter is settled, what do you plan to do next?" Xiaofu's eyes showed confusion. "I don't know. The evil emperor is not dead. With my talent, I have no hope of killing him in this life. I only hope that one day the little immortal will kill him. As for me, I might wander the martial world and slowly die in some forgotten corner." It was clear that after nearly completing her revenge, she had lost her direction in life. Ning Chang said, "I need to build a spiritual herb garden and lack a caretaker. If you cultivate herbs for me, I will kill Xianxia for you when the time comes." "How about that?" Xiaofu froze, her eyes lighting up with hope and direction. She kowtowed heavily again, grateful. "Thank you, little immortal, for your mercy. I am willing. I am willing." She was almost incoherent, looking at Ning Chang as if seeing the light of salvation. Song Yuanqiao and the others were also interested in the spiritual herb garden Ning Chang mentioned, looking curiously. Ning Chang smiled slightly. "In that case, there's no time like the present. Let's start today." Establishing a spiritual herb garden had always been Ning Chang's plan. Most of the spiritual herbs he had obtained in the 9 provinces world were not very potent. They were useful when his cultivation was shallow. But as he approached the completion of qi refining, the spirit-ascending pills made from these herbs had little effect. Only the spirit-transforming pills were still somewhat useful. In this situation, cultivating his own spiritual herbs was imperative. Otherwise, when he reached the foundation establishment and golden core stages, his cultivation would be as slow as a turtle, which Ning Chang couldn't tolerate. With his deeper understanding of time restrictions, he could accelerate the growth of spiritual herbs far beyond other objects. The 7 stars gathering spirit formation provided abundant spiritual energy, making it the perfect time to establish the herb garden. Ning Chang waved his hand, enveloping everyone in the 5 elements escape technique. Before they could react, they found themselves on the other side of Tianzhu Peak, near the Heavenman tomb. Song Yuanqiao and the others gaped. Their junior brother's divine abilities were becoming more impressive. Ning Chang didn't mind. He pointed to the sky, and the 7 stars gathering spirit formation responded, gathering rolling spiritual energy. Under the catalysis of the eternal evergreen technique's spiritual power, it transformed into boundless vitality, infusing the soil beneath their feet. Xiaofu sensed a faint, strange energy in the soil, similar to what she had felt in the spiritual sword. Ning Chang smiled. To establish a spiritual herb garden, the first step was to create spiritual soil. Ordinary soil required centuries to cultivate spiritual herbs. Using spiritual soil greatly shortened this time, and with time restrictions, it could help Ning Chang in a shorter period. Rolling spiritual energy poured in. Ning Chang summoned the mountain and river, gathering spirit furnace, pouring the stored spiritual liquid into the soil, forming the foundation of spiritual soil. The rich spiritual light flashed. Song Yunkeo and the others couldn't feel it, but standing on the soil made them feel incredibly comfortable. Ning Chang cast restrictions, locking in the spiritual energy. The soil slowly transformed into spiritual soil, needing only a few more days to complete. The first step was successful. Next was the formation setup, the spirit locking formation. This small formation, recently created by Ning Chang, could lock in spiritual energy. He wanted the herb garden to achieve its own cycle, becoming a spiritual land within Wudang. Pure Yang True Fire appeared, refining formation flags, which he placed in the corners of the spiritual soil. From Ning Chang's perspective, the spiritual energy only entered, not exited. Over time, it would become a blessed land, a unique opportunity for Xiaofu. With the herb garden's foundation complete, Song Yunkeo and the others looked up, seeing a beam of star power descending from the sky, continuously supplying the spiritual soil. The sight was like heavenly blessings, more majestic and grand than any earthly waterfall, leaving them in awe of their junior brother's grand plan. Mo Shengu curiously asked, "Junior brother, you mentioned a herb garden. Where are the herbs?" Ning Chang smiled. This was the final step, transplanting the herbs. With a wave, spiritual herbs flew from his Na-Yuan ring. Ginseng, fleeceflower root, Lingjai angelica. All were top grade, centuries old, with considerable spiritual power. Two items stood out. One was a black-red seed, the remnant of a zhu fruit, still containing spiritual power. If successfully planted, it could be cultivated on a large scale. The other was a spiritual tea tree, discovered by chance on Wudang, containing faint spiritual power. After extensive cultivation, it had transformed into a Tao comprehension tea, extremely precious among the herbs. Ning Chang infused each herb with the eternal evergreen technique's spiritual power, planting them in the spiritual soil, aligning with the secrets of heaven and the formation's requirements. The star power and spiritual energy were drawn to the herbs, rejuvenating them and enhancing their essence. Ning Chang added time restrictions to the formation, accelerating the herb's absorption of spiritual energy. The time flow effect was evident. Though he had initially grasped a bit of time restriction by chance, he still didn't fully understand it. The Tao of time was vast, requiring endless exploration. After observing for a while and finding no issues, Ning Chang felt relieved. The herb garden was complete. He looked at Song Yunkeo and the others who were in a daze. Such methods were truly earth-shattering. The star power column descended like a heavenly river, and the herb garden was filled with boundless vitality. The herbs thrived, making one feel refreshed with just a breath. This herb garden was worlds apart from ordinary ones. Ning Chang's plan had greatly exceeded their expectations. They had thought it would be a simple plot for planting herbs. Now, they realized they had only guessed half right. The Wudang 7 heroes exchanged glances, smiling and sighing in admiration. They could never predict their junior brother's methods. The Wudang 7 heroes were continuously amazed. Even though they were accustomed to Ning Chang's unpredictability, they were still astonished. This spiritual herb garden was like the legendary celestial garden of the heavens. They even thought that, given time, it might truly become a celestial garden. Xiaofu was equally stunned. Unlike the Wudang 7 heroes who were purely amazed and awestruck, she felt an immense sense of tension and self-doubt. Could she really manage such a mystical and extraordinary herb garden? If she failed and caused trouble for the little immortal, she would be guilty beyond redemption. Ning Chang's voice rang out. "From now on, you will live here and take good care of the herbs. Water them with spiritual water 3 times a day. No one will disturb you here." With a slight gesture, the spiritual soil on the west side of the herb garden sprouted grass, quickly forming a genuine grass hut. Although this scene was also quite mystical compared to before, it was nothing. The Wudang 7 heroes were becoming immune. Xiaofu quickly nodded but hesitated. Finally, she said, I'm worried I won't do a good job. If I don't take good care of your herbs and cause trouble for you, I would be guilty beyond redemption." Ning Chang smiled slightly. "Since I said you can do it, you can. Communicate with the herbs as you did with the spiritual sword. If anything happens, come to the Sutra Pavilion and tell me." This was what Ning Chang valued most about Xiaofu. Otherwise, he could have any Wudang disciple do the mundane tasks of watering the herbs. After saying this, Ning Chang and the Wudang 7 heroes nodded, and they instantly disappeared from the spot. Xiaofu stood speechless, silently walking among the herbs. Gradually, she felt a sense of peace, and then she sensed a mysterious pulsation around her. She widened her eyes in surprise, feeling as if the herbs were greeting her, lively, pure, and without deceit. Xiaofu couldn't help but look up at the starry sky, then at the herbs swaying with spiritual light, and she smiled from the bottom of her heart. After her sect was massacred and her revenge on Imei Mountain, she had seen the worst of human nature. She was tired of the martial world's conflicts. Now this secluded herb garden provided her with a sanctuary, a joy she couldn't express to others. TLN, she had no enemy's moment. She bowed respectfully towards the Sutra Pavilion. "I will take good care of these herbs for you," she thought, determined to help Ning Chang with whatever she could. Ning Chang withdrew his spiritual sense, smiled slightly, and stopped paying attention to the herb garden. The Sutra Pavilion was now empty, as Song Yuan Keo and the others had left after chatting with him for a while. They had many mundane affairs to attend to after their return and needed to consolidate their gains from the recent lecture. Ning Chang didn't keep them, knowing they had plenty of time in Wudang. He also needed to focus on his own cultivation. The 5 elements divine sword Qi was not the end, but the beginning. The Tao of the 5 elements was vast. Now that the 5 elements swords were complete, he aimed to create the 5 elements sword formation, which would be more powerful than the 3 talents sword formation. Summoning the 5 elements swords, they floated and shimmered around him. Ning Chang closed his eyes, gradually entering a state of enlightenment. The aftermath of the battle on Imei Mountain, where Ning Chang severed the evil emperor's limbs, gradually faded, and his fame soared even higher in Ming. However, this had little to do with Ning Chang himself. Since completing the 5 elements swords, his life had returned to a peaceful routine of meditating, reading scriptures, nurturing his swords, and refining his qi in the Sutra Pavilion. The pursuit of immortality was not tedious but filled with joy, provided one was devoted to the Tao. One day, the 5 spiritual swords floated around Ning Chang, their spiritual light shimmering. The swords' auras had grown stronger in recent days. Ning Chang had discovered that once the 5 elements were gathered, nurturing them in his dantian accelerated their transformation. Soon, they would evolve from top-grade magical weapons to spiritual weapons. Spiritual weapons possessed spirituality and consciousness, or a spirit. Even without Ning Chang's spiritual sense, the 5 element swords could unleash terrifying power. However, Ning Chang's focus was not on this, but on the crucial moment of comprehending the 5 element sword formation. "Gather," he commanded softly. The 5 swords began to merge their spiritual energies in a profound way. First, they formed the 3 talent sword formation, with 3 swords combining and constantly shifting. Then, they evolved from the 3 talents to the 4 symbols. 3 talents transform into 4 symbols, and 4 symbols into 5 elements, Ning Chang chanted, and the spiritual swords hummed joyfully. The 4 swords representing metal, wood, water, and fire evolved into the 4 symbols, with the azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, and black tortoise roaring. This 4-symbol sword formation was more advanced than the 3 talents formation. The 4 swords circled, forming a sword ring. Then the earth sword joined, with the Qilin in the center. Earth acted as a bridge, creating endless mysteries between metal, wood, water, and fire. The 5 elements connected, and the 5 spirits roared. An unparalleled sword formation was instantly formed. The 5-colored sword Qi flashed, its power unmatched. In the first floor of the Sutra Pavilion, Jin Ling opened his eyes, showing reverence. The Taoist master's strength had grown even more, to the point where the monkey couldn't see his back. Ning Chang laughed heartily, his voice filled with joy. His diligent study had finally paid off. System prompt. You use the 3 talent sword formation as a foundation, evolving metal, wood, water, and fire into the 4 spirits, comprehending the 4 divine beasts guarding the 4 directions, creating the Taoist sword formation. 4 symbols sword formation. You use the 4 symbols sword formation as a foundation, with earth in the center, connecting metal, wood, water, and fire, evolving the 5 elements sword Qi, successfully creating the Taoist sword formation, 5 elements sword formation. Creating these 2 sword formations deepened Ning Chang's understanding of formations. Although the 4 symbols sword formation was not as powerful as the 5 elements sword formation, It solidified his theoretical foundation. The five-element sword formation, when unleashed, would be truly earth-shattering. But this was not the end. Ning Chang was not satisfied. Previously, the three-talent sword formation could nest formations within formations. The five-element sword formation should be no different. He spent several more days improving the sword shadow technique, eventually allowing each spiritual sword to split into 4 sword shadows. Although the individual power of these shadows was less than when split into 2, their overall power was greater, a small breakthrough. More importantly, each spiritual sword could now deploy the five-element sword formation. With all 5 swords, the nested five-element sword formation would be terrifying. Ning Chang was confident that if he faced Xianxia again, the five-element sword formation alone could obliterate him without Ning Chang lifting a finger. The power had increased significantly. He opened his eyes just as Jin Ling respectfully offered spiritual tea, bowing in congratulations for Ning Chang's achievement. Ning Chang laughed. "You little monkey, always flattering." He was in a good mood. Jin Ling scratched his head, looking endearing. Jin Ling had made significant progress recently. If he manifested his true form, he would be nearly 3 zhang tall, steadily approaching 4 zhang. Ning Chang estimated that when Jin Ling reached 4 zhang, he would rival a land immortal. Moreover, something deep in Jin Ling's bloodline seemed to be awakening, most notably his increasingly mystical eyes. Jin Ling couldn't speak but could read and write. He described how, when his spiritual power surged, his eyes could see through an enemy's weaknesses, as if their movements were in slow motion. This mysterious ability, combined with Jin Ling's sturdy physique, made him a formidable fighter. Ning Chang tried to analyze it, but only had some clues. Perhaps one day he could help Jin Ling fully develop this innate ability and create his own eye technique. Seeing Jin Ling reminded Ning Chang of his recent observations of Xianxia's severed limbs. He summoned the limbs, which floated in the air, wrapped in spiritual power, still containing remnants of the evil emperor's true power. On a May mountain, Ning Chang had been intrigued by Xianxia's Tenjiang true demon body, a fusion of true power and physical body, resembling a Taoist technique. He had brought the limbs back to Wudang for study. While comprehending the five-element sword formation, he had also studied the limbs, gaining some insights. He smiled. "Jin Ling, manifest your true form. Let me observe." With the five-element sword formation complete, he could now focus on understanding and creating a physical technique based on the evil emperor's path and Jin Ling's physique. Jin Ling didn't hesitate, instantly manifesting his true form. His nearly 3 zhang body should have filled the sutra pavilion, but it seemed to touch no ceiling, thanks to spatial restrictions with a hint of the profound. Ning Chang's understanding of restrictions had deepened. He sat on his Taoist mat, his eyes flashing with spiritual light, carefully observing. Time passed unnoticed on Wudang Mountain. Since the news of Ning Chang severing the evil emperor's limbs spread, his fame grew, bringing a small downside. More old monsters came to challenge him. These Heaven Man experts, nearing the end of their lives, saw the Heaven Man tomb of Wudang as an honor. If they could break through during the challenge, it would be a great gain. If they fell, being buried in the Heaven Man tomb, given Ning Chang's fame, would not disgrace them but immortalize them. Thus, many martial elders climbed Tianzhu Peak. However, few qualified for the Heaven Man tomb, only 5 in total. Most were ordinary Heaven Man experts, unworthy of the tomb. Fortunately, Jin Ling handled them, sparing Ning Chang the annoyance. Atop Tianzhu Peak, a fierce battle was underway. Wudang disciples watched, along with disciples of the Beggar Sect. The combatants were none other than the former leader of the Beggar Sect, a legendary figure who had retreated but was still alive, and Jin Ling, the Wudang spiritual monkey. The booming sounds echoed across Tianzhu Peak. The once withered old man, now with white hair flying, his muscles bulging with qi, had transformed into a mighty warrior. Dragon roars filled the air, showcasing the Beggar Sect's dragon subduing palms. The old leader had perfected this technique, making him a formidable Heaven Man expert. Unfortunately, severe injuries had halted his progress to the land immortal realm. Now nearing the end of his life, he chose this final battle, hoping to break through. Beggar Sect disciples watched their mighty old leader with mixed emotions. Cairo Feng whispered to Hong Qigong, "Seventh Elder, do you think the old leader can succeed?" Both were pillars of the Beggar Sect, having been personally guided by the old leader, making him a half-master to them. Hong Qigong, with sorrow in his eyes, shook his head. The old leader's injuries make it very difficult. The Wudang spiritual monkey's physique is unparalleled, with mysterious abilities I can't fathom. The old leader probably won't win. Reluctantly, he admitted that the old leader couldn't surpass the spiritual monkey to meet the legendary little immortal. On the battlefield, the spiritual monkey, nearly 3 zhang tall, was like a small mountain, its strength unmatched. Even the dragon-subduing palms, known for their power, struggled against it. Boom, boom, boom. The golden dragon palm force clashed with Jin Ling's body, the dull sounds echoing across Tianzhu Peak. It was clear that Jin Ling had the upper hand. The old leader seemed fierce but was running out of steam. Song Yunkyo and the others watched Jin Ling with admiration. This little monkey has grown stronger. Now even if the 7 of us join forces, we might only fight it to a draw. Zhang Songxi nodded in agreement. Since our junior brother comprehended that physical technique, the monkey's progress has been rapid. Mo Shengu laughed. Are you too jealous? Our junior brother said that Jin Ling's innate physique is special, allowing him to access some Taoist techniques early. We have to wait. He looked carefree, quickly subdued by Song Yunkyo and Zhang Songxi. The Wudang disciples covered their mouths, laughing, their eyes filled with envy for Jin Ling. On the battlefield, the old leader's chi was waning. No regrets in subduing the dragon? He roared, unleashing a massive dragon-shaped palm force at Jin Ling. Jin Ling's eyes gleamed, pinpointing the weak spot in the dragon-shaped chi. With a roar, he tore it apart with his hands. Jin Ling's arms glowed with golden light, his hairs like short daggers, exuding a mystical aura. The old leader felt immense pressure, sighing inwardly, knowing he would fall today. He had hoped to at least defeat the spiritual monkey and meet the little immortal, but he had underestimated the monkey's strength. He took a deep breath, his eyes clearing of despair. Looking at Jin Ling, he spoke with respect. Jin Ling, it is an honor to fight you. I have no regrets. I heard you have a supreme martial art. May I see it before I die? Jin Ling paused, his eyes thoughtful, then nodded slowly. The old leader's face lit up, then grew serious, his chi fully mobilized. The 3 zhang tall spiritual monkey began to change, golden light spreading across its body, star power gathering. In the disciples' shocked eyes, the monkey's body grew rapidly. 4 zhang, 5 zhang, 6 zhang. In just a few breaths, the monkey's body doubled in size, glowing with golden light like divine armor blocking out the sky, its presence terrifying. Tianzhu Peak was filled with the sound of gasps. A height difference of 3 zhang between 6 and 3 zhang may seem small, but the pressure it exudes increases exponentially. Jin Ling now radiated golden light, resembling a divine war god clad in celestial armor, commanding awe and reverence. Layers of golden light enveloped him, making him appear sacred and inviolable. Cairo Feng's eyes widened in shock. Is this the legendary supreme martial art of the Wudang spiritual monkey? It's truly terrifying. I thought it was exaggerated, but now... Cairo Feng fell silent, feeling a chill down his spine. Many had come to challenge Tianzhu Peak recently, including several peerless Heavenman experts. Among them were individuals as formidable as Sword Emperor Jiu and the old leader of the Beggar Sect. Naturally, Jin Ling had used this physical technique during these battles, spreading its fame. However, most people only mentioned the spiritual monkey reaching a height of 5 zhang after using the technique. Now, seeing it at 6 zhang was beyond their expectations. Hong Qigong also gasped. Though he and Cairo Feng were renowned martial artists, they had no chance against this spiritual monkey. Even if they joined forces, they wouldn't stand a chance. The Beggar Sect disciples fell silent, and the Wudang disciples were equally amazed. Yin Liting marveled, Nephew Jin Ling's divine technique has become even more powerful. It seems our junior brother has improved it again. Song Yunkyo nodded with a smile. Indeed. Last time, Jin Ling's technique only reached a little over 5 zhang, and the golden armor wasn't as solid. Everyone sighed, knowing that the true strength lay not just in Jin Ling but in their junior brother, who was quietly cultivating in the Sutra Pavilion. At this moment, the old leader of the Beggar Sect, seeing Jin Ling's divine technique, felt his heart race. However, he was a seasoned martial artist with nearly 3 decades of experience, and his martial will was unwavering. His battle intent surged. Roar, roar, roar. The dragon-subduing palms unleashed golden dragons at the golden-armored spiritual monkey, embodying both ferocity and subtlety. Cairo Feng, Hong Qi, watch closely as I demonstrate the dragon-subduing palms one last time. He laughed, knowing his end was near and wanting to leave something for his successors. The beggar sect disciples clenched their fists, eyes filled with sorrow, but none tried to stop him. This was the old leader's decision. If he feared death, he wouldn't have come to Wudang. Facing the terrifying dragon palms, Jin Ling remained unfazed. His six-zhang body reached out, effortlessly grasping the golden dragons as if they were mere insects. With a burst of golden light, he tore them apart. The resulting shockwave would have severely injured a grandmaster, but it barely affected Jin Ling, who absorbed it with a slight ripple of golden light. The beggar sect disciples fell silent, their sorrow deepening. Jin Ling's strength was overwhelming, unshakable. Song Yuan-Keo and the others sighed, acknowledging that Jin Ling was nearly a land immortal in strength. He could contend with the likes of the sweeping monk and sword Emperor Jiu. Boom, boom. The sounds of battle echoed across Tianzhu Peak, accompanied by the old leader's hearty laughter. Jin Ling showed him full respect, understanding his intentions. He could sense the attitude of those who challenged him and responded accordingly. If someone treated him as a mere beast, he would tear them apart without mercy. Refreshing, this is the best fight I've had in the past 30 years. The old leader's mouth bled as he retreated. He bowed to Jin Ling, "Thank you, spiritual monkey." Then, looking at the Sutra Pavilion with regret, he said, "Alas, I'm not strong enough to meet the little immortal." Finally, he glanced at the beggar sect disciples, laughing, "The beggar sect is in your hands now." With that, he sat cross-legged, his life force fading. After fighting Jin Ling for so long, he had reached his limit, barely holding on. The beggar sect disciples' sorrow deepened. Cairo Feng and Hong Qigong bowed, and the disciples shouted in unison, "Farewell, old leader." Jin Ling reverted to his four-zhang form and bowed. A green spiritual light appeared, carrying the old leader's body into an ancient tree in the Heavenman tomb. The tomb's aura grew more profound. Now, 10 top-tier Heavenman experts were buried there, each a legendary figure. The tomb's reputation was becoming legendary, and those buried there were remembered. The tomb's aura evolved, enriched by the paths of the 10 experts. Ning Chang, sitting in the Sutra Pavilion, glanced at it with joy. Establishing the Heavenman tomb had been a wise decision. The evolution of life and death within it benefited him greatly, as the 5 elements, life and death, and yin and yang were interconnected. His spiritual sense enveloped the area. Song Yuan-Keo and the others led Cairo Feng and Hong Qigong to stay, only glancing at the Sutra Pavilion from afar. Cairo Feng, looking at the pavilion, felt a strong desire to meet the little immortal and fulfill the old leader's wish. Despite the old leader's death, the beggar sect harbored no ill will towards Wudang. The challenge had been the old leader's choice, and Wudang had given him respect, fostering goodwill between the two sects. Ning Chang paid no attention to these matters, focusing on Jin Ling, who entered respectfully. "Well done," he praised. Jin Ling beamed with joy. Others' praise meant little to him, but Ning Chang's approval delighted him. "Manifest your true form and use your divine technique. I'll make some adjustments." Ning Chang had observed Jin Ling's technique and noticed some imperfections. It was time to refine it further. This had been part of his cultivation, studying the evil emperor's limbs and Jin Ling's physique to develop this physical technique. Jin Ling had been using it in real battles, allowing Ning Chang to observe and adjust it gradually. Now it was nearly perfected. Jin Ling didn't hesitate, manifesting his 3-zhang form, enveloped in golden light, growing to 6-zhang. This was the effect of the technique, not his true size, resembling a mecha. If Jin Ling's body could reach 6-zhang, he would be a formidable land immortal. Ning Chang estimated that a 4-zhang true form would be the threshold for the land immortal realm. Ning Chang's eyes glowed with spiritual light, observing the fluctuations within the golden light. Time passed unnoticed. System prompt: you observe the evil emperor's limbs and the spiritual monkey's physique, comprehending the fusion of spiritual power and the physical body. You create the Taoist technique, golden armor manifestation. Ning Chang opened his eyes, filled with joy. The golden armor manifestation was now perfected, the golden light stable and without disorder. The golden armor manifestation not only enlarges the body with endless mysteries, but also forms a defensive golden armor of spiritual power, making it a top-tier technique for both defense and offense. He smiled, having created this technique by emulating the legendary heaven and earth transformation, laying the foundation for true physical divine abilities. One day I will create the true heaven and earth transformation, allowing size manipulation at will, a supreme divine ability. Ning Chang was confident in his perseverance. Jin Ling, having received the golden armor manifestation, bowed and left. Ning Chang continued reading the Taoist scriptures, absorbing spiritual energy, refining it into spiritual power. His dantian was nearly filled with liquid spiritual power, approaching the peak of qi refinement. The beggar sect disciples stayed on Tianzhu Peak for nearly half a month. The old leader's burial in the Heaven Man tomb, after the initial sorrow, led Cairo Feng and the others to gradually recover. Their visit to Wudang was also for exchange, a significant purpose. Soon, Cairo Feng and the others were repeatedly shocked, witnessing the depth of Wudang's heritage. The beggar sect was a renowned sect in the Great Song, with Hong Qigong among the five greats, and Cairo Feng's strength surpassing his peers. However, compared to Wudang, they felt inferior. They had thought Wudang, despite its recent rise as a Taoist holy land, wouldn't be much stronger than the beggar sect. They were proven wrong. In duels, none of the beggar sect's young disciples could defeat Wudang's third-generation disciples. Most of Wudang's third-generation disciples were innate experts, with many grandmasters among them. The duels were one-sided. Cairo Feng and Hong Qigong, trying to save face, joined forces but only managed a draw against the Wudang Seven Heroes Beidou Seven Stars formation. The hard power was evident. The soft power was also impressive. In Wudang, they felt more comfortable, their minds clearer, likely due to Wudang's transformation into a spiritual land. The Heaven Man tomb's mystery and grandeur were well known. Seeing it from afar, they felt awe. The evolving aura within the tomb was suffocating, and the paths within were clear. Watching Wudang disciples enter with tokens to comprehend the paths, they felt complex emotions. Hong Qigong sighed, "One day Wudang will be filled with grandmasters and great-grandmasters. It's unimaginable." Cairo Feng and Hong Qigong exchanged silent looks, seeing a faint star river flowing into the back mountain. Song Yuankeo mentioned it was Ning Chang's spiritual herb garden but didn't elaborate. They speculated it was as grand as the Heaven Man tomb. They felt like country bumpkins in a grand estate, deeply impressed by Wudang's heritage. A few days later, the beggar sect group left Wudang, escorted by Song Yuankeo and others, still in awe. "It's a pity we didn't meet the legendary little immortal. All these incredible changes in Wudang are his doing," Cairo Feng sighed, regretting not meeting Ning Chang. Hong Qigong shook his head. The little immortal's dedication to the Tao is unwavering, hence his achievements. His spiritual monkey is so powerful. I can't imagine how formidable he must be. I thought the stories of him severing the evil emperor on a May mountain were exaggerated, but now I see I was wrong. This visit to Wudang has opened my eyes. Never underestimate anyone. He spoke with reverence for Ning Chang. The beggar sect disciples nodded, realizing their own shortcomings. Cairo Feng looked towards the Sutra Pavilion. "If I reach the land immortal realm, I must duel the little immortal." Hong Qigong patted his shoulder in encouragement, but knew Cairo Feng might never achieve it. Cairo Feng was a peerless talent, but Ning Chang was destined to stand atop the 9 provinces. The departure of the beggar sect disciples caused little stir. Such exchanges were common for Wudang, with many sects visiting and leaving in awe, spreading Wudang's fame. Reputation in the martial world was built not just through battles, but also through such exchanges, gaining genuine respect rather than forced submission. Time flowed differently on Wudang Mountain. Cultivation days were both slow and fast. Ning Chang was unhurried, spending his days meditating, refining qi, reading scriptures, playing chess with Jin Ling or Song Yuankeo, and sometimes flying alone to observe the clouds and sun, finding unique joy. The batch of spirit-transforming pills made from zhu fruit was nearly exhausted. They should have been used up by the 11th level of qi refinement, but the spirit-ascending pills filled a significant gap, and the 7 stars gathering spirit formation enriched Wudang's spiritual energy, extending their use. This deepened Ning Chang's cultivation. His dantian was nearly filled with liquid spiritual power. According to his calculations, ordinary cultivators' spiritual power only liquefied at the foundation establishment stage. However, the eternal evergreen technique allowed him to liquefy his spiritual power early, granting various divine abilities, one reason for his formidable combat strength. Without it, even strong qi refinement cultivators wouldn't be as powerful. One day, feeling a sudden inspiration, Ning Chang took a spirit-transforming pill. Boom! His spiritual power formed a vortex, quickly absorbing the pill's energy. Seizing this moment, he activated the eternal evergreen technique, turning the last bit of spiritual power into liquid. Drip. The clear sound, filled with Taoist charm, marked the final drop of spiritual liquid into his spiritual lake. Mystical changes began in his dantian. The spiritual lake rotated, forming a vast vortex of azure color, embodying not just life, but also the five elements' spiritual light. The wood element evolved into the five elements, solidifying the vortex into a nascent form of the five elements. This would later become his Tao foundation, nurturing a golden core and evolving into a nascent soul. Ningchang opened his eyes, filled with joy. He had achieved the peak of qi refinement. Now he needed to accumulate his foundation and achieve the Tao foundation, stepping into the foundation establishment stage. His path to Tao cultivation would reach a new level. Achieving the pinnacle of qi refinement did not slow Ningchang's progress. The path to immortality is long and requires constant diligence to reach distant goals. After a brief celebration, Ningchang calmed his mind and contemplated his next steps. Now that I've perfected qi refinement, to advance to the foundation establishment stage, I must first create the foundation establishment chapter of the eternal evergreen technique. The foundation establishment chapter isn't difficult. I've had a draft in mind for a while. The achievements of the five elements divine sword qi and the five elements sword formation have given me a foundational understanding of the five elements Tao. Now I just need to integrate this understanding into my path to naturally comprehend the method for forging the five elements Tao foundation. Ningchang summoned the five elements spiritual swords, which began to rotate around him. The five elements Tao foundation was his chosen path. The five elements are infinitely profound and currently the most accessible path for him. Using them as his Tao foundation would not only make him powerful in battle, but also pave the way for future advancements into yin-yang, life and death, time and space, and chaos. He focused his spiritual sense on his dantian, observing the vortex of spiritual liquid nurturing the five elements' spiritual light, and smiled. I can start from here and create the foundation establishment chapter in one go. With the general direction and foundation in place, the remaining task was to fill in the details, which was not difficult for him. The five elements' spiritual swords emitted spiritual light, enveloping Ningchang as he entered a state of enlightenment. Wudang Mountain remained peaceful. The disciples diligently cultivated. Jinling, besides his daily cultivation, often sparred with Song Yuanqiao and other senior brothers. Jinling's tough skin and immense strength made him the only one, aside from Ningchang, capable of withstanding the combined attacks of the Wudang Seven Heroes sword formation. Jinling enjoyed this, as combining cultivation and combat accelerated his growth. The strength of Wudang's members increased daily. Living in a spiritual land, practicing supreme martial arts, and receiving guidance from their elders made it hard not to grow stronger. The Wudang Seven Heroes were determined to become more powerful, not wanting to rely on their junior brother for every crisis. Occasionally, martial artists visited Wudang, leaving in awe and reverence. Since the old leader of the beggar sect was buried in the Heavenman tomb, its prestige had grown, deterring many challengers. Jinling's strength intimidated many, as defeating him to meet Ningchang required nearland immortal power, which was extremely rare. After receiving the golden armor manifestation from Ningchang, Jinling's combat power soared. In this atmosphere, Ningchang was delighted. Immersed in enlightenment, he sought perfection in his future path, taking his time. He read Taoist scriptures daily, deepening his understanding of the five elements. The five elements spiritual swords in his dantian enhanced the spiritual light, occasionally being summoned for insights into the fusion of the five elements and spiritual power. He also learned from nature, observing the interplay of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, understanding their separation and fusion and consolidating his insights. Time passed swiftly. Months flew by. One day, Ningchang, sitting on his spiritual jade mat, suddenly awoke from a deep sleep. He had dreamt of climbing a celestial tree, each leaf representing a law, its fruits embodying the Tao, and its trunk filled with endless mysteries. The tree, infinite and rooted in chaos, had taken him eons to climb. He awoke from the dream, feeling unsatisfied. Such a path is truly the great Tao, Ningchang sighed, filled with longing. Inspired by his dream, he thought, pursuing immortality is about fulfilling one's desires. If I yearn for such a Tao, why not strive for it? An epiphany struck him. If I am to forge the five elements Tao foundation, why not use a spiritual tree as the foundation to nurture the golden core? It was as if thunder exploded in his mind, revealing the long-sought opportunity. Overwhelmed with excitement, he began to deduce and comprehend. In his dantian, the vortex of spiritual liquid and the 5 elements spiritual light slowly transformed into a small sapling. Time passed unnoticed. When Ning Chang emerged from his profound state, he observed significant changes in his dantian. The vortex of spiritual liquid had turned azure, filled with vibrant life. The 5 elements spiritual light had transformed into a small sapling, a fusion of spiritual power and the Tao. System prompt. Using the 5 elements sword formation and the 5 elements divine sword qi as a foundation, you comprehend the principles of the 5 elements. Learning from nature and Taoist scriptures, you gain inspiration in a dream and create the eternal evergreen technique, foundation establishment chapter, 5 elements Tao foundation method. Ning Chang couldn't help but laugh heartily, his joy resonating through Tianzhu Peak, surprising Jin Ling, who sensed his master's rare happiness and felt elated. The Wudang disciples, hearing Ning Chang's laughter, bowed respectfully towards the Sutra Pavilion, knowing their junior uncle had achieved something significant. Ning Chang, smiling, looked at the small sapling in his dantian's vortex. The path to foundation establishment is now clear. When this sapling grows into a tree, I will advance to the foundation establishment stage. According to my calculations, advancing from the pinnacle of qi refinement to foundation establishment involves 3 major hurdles: spiritual power, spiritual sense, and mental state. The eternal evergreen technique, refined over 5 years, grants me spiritual power far surpassing my peers. My spiritual power has already liquefied, meeting the requirements for foundation establishment. This hurdle is not difficult. My spiritual liquid constantly nourishes the sapling, and it will grow into a tree in due time. As for spiritual sense, my daily practice of the heavenly phenomenon spirit refining technique has made my spiritual sense exceptionally strong, surpassing my peers. This hurdle is also manageable. The final hurdle is the mental state, which requires a clear mind and no karmic entanglements. This is not a problem for me. Ning Chang carefully planned his path to advancement. For now, he didn't need to worry about spiritual herbs, as the herb garden had ample time to cultivate them. He only needed to focus on his cultivation and naturally break through to foundation establishment. My 5 elements Tao foundation is unique and requires regular nourishment from 5 elements spiritual materials to grow. I have a feeling that upon breaking through to foundation establishment, I might gain a life-bound divine ability. Ning Chang looked forward to this possibility. Like Jin Ling, who had innate divine abilities, he hoped to gain a life-bound divine ability upon forming his 5 elements Tao foundation. With the method perfected, it was now a matter of time and effort. Ning Chang was in no rush. He had a lifespan of 600 years and was only 10 years old. Upon reaching foundation establishment, his lifespan would increase further, giving him ample time to pursue the Tao. Filled with joy, he summoned his spiritual sword, flew into the sky, and enjoyed a drink of spiritual wine while lying on the clouds. After a refreshing flight, he landed on Tianzhu Peak. Suddenly, he sensed a disturbance from the forbidden area in the back mountain, where Zhang Sanfeng was in seclusion. More joy filled his eyes. Double happiness! It seems Master is about to succeed in his seclusion. Ning Chang looked up and saw celestial phenomena manifesting in the sky. The Wudang disciples also noticed something unusual. Song Yuanqiao and the others, seeing Ning Chang outside the Sutra Pavilion, eagerly asked, "Junior brother, is it Master?" Ning Chang smiled and nodded. "Yes, it seems Master has succeeded." Though expected, Zhang Sanfeng's year-long seclusion had caused some concern. Now, with his success, the disciples were overjoyed. Master has finally succeeded. After more than a year, Master is finally coming out. This is wonderful. That means Wudang will have 2 land immortals. Everyone laughed and cheered. Although Ning Chang was not officially a land immortal, he was considered as powerful, making Wudang's status as a sect with 2 land immortals an incredible honor. Even the Taoist holy land of Mount Longhu had only 1 land immortal, the old heavenly master. Mo Shengu joked, "I can't wait to see Master's reaction to Wudang's changes." Imagining Zhang Sanfeng's shock, everyone chuckled. Ning Chang smiled, looking at the sky with curiosity. From his perspective, the spiritual energy around Tianzhu Peak was surging, amplified by the 7 stars gathering spirit formation, making the phenomenon even more spectacular than a typical land immortal breakthrough. Breaking through from the heaven-man realm to the land immortal realm is perceptible to heaven-man experts. with the intensity of the phenomenon reflecting the power of the breakthrough. "So this is how land immortals resonate with the world's spiritual energy," Ning Chang murmured. Observing this firsthand was more enlightening than his previous encounter with the evil emperor. He saw more clearly now. Land immortals use their true power to resonate with the world's spiritual energy, similar to a lever with themselves as the fulcrum. Theoretically, infinite true power would result in infinitely powerful resonance, as Zhang Sanfeng had explained. However, land immortals have a lifespan of 500 years, and their true power is not infinite, making their strength limited. This allows for categorizing land immortals into different levels. Ning Chang speculated that if an ancient monster with exceptional talent and thousands of years of life existed, their power would be unimaginable. The gap between land immortals could be greater than that between Heavenman experts and land immortals. In the sky, clouds rolled back, revealing a Taiji symbol over Tianju Peak, its size magnified by the 7 stars gathering spirit formation. The symbol emitted waves of martial intent, merging with the world. It seemed as if a mysterious force was descending upon the back mountain, like a reward. Ning Chang's eyes narrowed. Is the world absorbing Master's Taiji Dao? He realized that the world nurtures martial artists, and when they ascend to the land immortal realm, they give back to the world. Zhang Sanfeng's Taiji Dao would enhance the world's rules, making the 9 provinces more complete. If enough land immortals are born, the 9 provinces could grow into a more powerful and expansive world, accommodating stronger beings. His eyes gleamed with a bold hypothesis. He thought, if I achieve the golden core or nascent soul in the Tao and spread immortal techniques, I could promote the world's advancement and gain immense merit. His heart raced at the thought, potentially accelerating his path to immortality. As he pondered, the celestial phenomena intensified. The Taiji symbol covered the sky, and an ethereal old Taoist ascended, standing beneath the symbol, and declared, "Today, I Zhang Sanfeng attain the Tao of the land immortal in Wudang." His voice echoed across Tianju Peak, resonating like the voice of heaven, reaching far and wide. Simultaneously, Heavenman experts across the Ming martial world sensed it, looking towards Wudang in shock. Someone in Wudang has become a land immortal. It's not the little immortal, but Master Zhang. Wow, that means Wudang now has 2 land immortal level combatants, making it the top in Ming. Wudang is truly blessed. With such heritage, it will flourish for 500 or even 1,000 years, becoming a millennia-old holy land. Many contemplated visiting Wudang to congratulate them. However, given Zhang Sanfeng's new status, they would wait for an invitation, knowing his centennial birthday was approaching, likely combining the birthday and ascension celebrations. Land immortals also turned their attention to Wudang. In the Ming imperial court on the 9-dragon throne, Emperor Zhu Hujiao stood alone, hands behind his back, feeling the world's resonance and sensing the world's joy. Is this? Wudang, 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 rising like a storm with 2 land immortals is unstoppable. For an emperor, fewer land immortals meant less threat, even within his own realm. 1 land immortal was manageable, but 2 approached his limit, making him uneasy. 3 or 4 would be intolerable, threatening his reign. Fortunately, Wudang, as a Taoist holy land, was righteous and unambitious. The emperor sighed, keep a close watch on Wudang, send a grand gift to congratulate Master Zhang on becoming a land immortal. Also prepare a lavish gift for his upcoming centennial birthday. A shadowy figure appeared behind him, kneeling respectfully. Yes, your majesty. The emperor gazed at the sky, feeling the growing resonance, and sighed. Zhang Sanfeng, truly a peerless talent. Achieving the land immortal realm with the Taiji Dao, he won't be a weak land immortal, and there's the even more monstrous little immortal. Wudang, Wudang. He repeated the name, slowly closing his eyes. Mount Longhu. The old heavenly master stood atop the mountain, his body radiating a dense golden light, one of his signature techniques, the golden light incantation. Recently, he had been delving into this technique, attempting to advance it further. I wonder how my golden light incantation compares to the golden armor manifestation created by Wudang's little immortal, he murmured to himself. Ever since Zhang Lingyu returned from Wudang, having witnessed Jin Ling's golden armor manifestation, the old heavenly master had felt a competitive urge. The golden armor of the golden armor manifestation was remarkably similar to his golden light incantation. When used for protection, the golden light incantation could form an armor-like effect. However, its offensive capabilities differed from the golden armor manifestation. Upon hearing that Jin Ling's golden armor manifestation was impenetrable even to Heaven Man experts, the old heavenly master became eager to test his skills. The golden light danced on his fingertips and flowed through his body like a living entity, bringing a smile to his face. "Next time I'll have Lingyu test it," he said, stroking his beard and retracting the golden light. Suddenly he looked towards Wudeng, his eyes filled with surprise. He had just been thinking about Wudeng, and now he sensed a disturbance. This is the breakthrough of a land immortal. It's that boy, Zhang Sanfeng. The Taiji Dao is indeed profound. Wudeng is truly blessed, producing such remarkable individuals in succession. Our Taoist sects are flourishing? The old heavenly master couldn't help but smile. Wudeng and Mount Longhu, both Taoist sects, were naturally closer. Frequent exchanges and mutual visits had strengthened their relationship, and he was genuinely happy for Wudeng. It's a pity it's not the little immortal. If he stepped into the land immortal realm, even I might not be his match. But I suppose he's not far from that realm. Immortal Dao, immortal Dao. I wonder if he can succeed. The old heavenly master sighed. When Wudeng destroyed the dragon-slaying saber, Yue Buquan had questioned Ning Changj, who had declared his path to be the immortal Dao. At the time, everyone was shocked, thinking Ning Changj had grand ambitions. But as his combat prowess became increasingly formidable, especially after severing the evil emperor's limbs on Mount Amei, the land immortal experts couldn't help but wonder what the immortal Dao truly was. They leaned towards the idea that the immortal Dao was a path to the land immortal realm, but many questions remained. At the Ming border in a small town. "Move along, don't block the way." "How unlucky." A waiter shoved an old beggar out of the tavern and slammed the door shut. The old beggar didn't mind, laughing. "You missed a great opportunity. If you learned my peerless swordsmanship and practiced for 10 years, you could dominate the martial world." "What a pity." He picked up a withered page from the ground, shaking his head. From inside, the waiter shouted, "Get lost. I've seen your kind a dozen times. Go to the east side of town. There's a bunch of beggars like you." The old beggar chuckled, shaking his head as he walked away. The waiter had good swordsmanship potential but lacked the fortune. As Dugu Kyubai, he knew his sword techniques could cause a stir in the martial world, yet here he was, trading them for a meal and still being thrown out. But Dugu Kyubai enjoyed this. Wandering the martial world was part of his sword enlightenment. He hadn't drawn his sword in 2 decades and felt lonely. Suddenly, he squinted and looked up at the sky, sensing the Taiji intent in the waves of energy. He nodded approvingly but then shook his head. "It's a pity it's not the little immortal attaining the Dao. Otherwise, I would visit Wudeng. A swordsman should duel with other swordsmen. Unfortunately, there aren't many worthy opponents in this vast martial world." Dugu Kyubai moved on, thinking that perhaps other kingdoms had suitable opponents, but he went wherever fate took him. In recent years, only Ning Changj had piqued his interest. Land immortals across Ming sensed the phenomenon, possibly amplified by the 7 stars gathering spirit formation. Even distant places near Ming felt it. However, one person far away in Qin also sensed it. At the 99 Zhang Ascension Pavilion, the first emperor stood alone, absorbing the dragon energy from the palace. His eyes reflected roaring dragons and a vast star river, exuding a fleeting aura of dominance. This was the path of the emperor, intertwined with the nation's fate. Dragon energy accelerated his cultivation, and upon reaching the land immortal realm, he could resonate with more of the world's power, hence the saying that emperors of the 9 provinces were never weak. But there was a downside. If the nation fell, the emperor's fate would be dire. However, Qin, the leading kingdom of the 9 provinces, had no such worries. Only small border nations had such concerns. The first emperor glanced towards Ming, sensing the phenomenon despite the distance. "The Taiji Dao." "It seems Master Zhang of Wudeng has attained the Dao. This path is commendable. It's a pity it's not the little immortal becoming a land immortal. I would like to see what his immortal Dao truly is." His eyes showed anticipation. Pursuing the Dao for immortality, he remained interested in Ning Changj's path as long as hope persisted. "Send a grand gift to Wudeng, congratulating Master Zhang on attaining the land immortal realm," he ordered. When Zhang Sanfeng's voice announcing his attainment of the Dao merged with the world, the martial world of Ming was shaken. Every land immortal had their thoughts. A new land immortal meant Wudeng's prestige would soar, and they sought to strengthen ties with Wudeng. Previously, Ning Changj's combat prowess was extraordinary, but if he faced a major setback and failed to become a land immortal, he would only live for 3 centuries. Now Zhang Sanfeng was a bona fide land immortal with a lifespan of 500 years. Wudeng's rise was unstoppable. While the martial world was abuzz, Wudeng was filled with joy and celebration. We congratulate Master, Grandmaster, on attaining the land immortal realm with a lifespan of 500 years, free to roam the world. The voices echoed to the heavens, making the white-robed Taoist in the sky laugh heartily, feeling elated. Zhang Sanfeng slowly descended from the sky, appearing before everyone. "No need for such formalities. Have you all become distant from your master during my seclusion?" he joked, smiling. Ning Chang and the others smiled back. Their master was still the same, never a harsh or stern teacher. "Master, we've missed you," Mo Shengu laughed. He was the most carefree of the group, thinking the arrival of a junior brother would change things, but Ning Chang turned out to be a prodigy with a calm demeanor even at 10 years old. So Mo Shengu remained the carefree one. Zhang Sanfeng playfully tapped Mo Shengu's head with his whisk, making him wince, causing everyone to laugh. Zhang Sanfeng looked at his disciples with joy. "I've been in seclusion for over a year. How have you and Wudeng been?" At this, Song Yunkeo and the others perked up. Even the usually composed Song Yunkeo couldn't help but exude his aura, eager to show his progress. Ning Chang chuckled at his senior brothers, all in their 50s, still acting like kids. But they only acted this way in front of Zhang Sanfeng and Ning Chang. Zhang Sanfeng, seeing his disciples' proud expressions, looked over calmly. Not bad. You're all grandmasters now, even little 7. It seems you haven't been slacking off." Despite his calm demeanor, Zhang Sanfeng was inwardly shocked. How had his disciples progressed so quickly in just over a year? When he entered seclusion, little 6 and little 7 were still masters, but now they were grandmasters. And the strongest, Zhang Quizhin, was already on the path to becoming a Heaven Man expert. Seeing their expectant faces, he softened and praised. "Indeed, well done. It seems you've been working hard." The disciples beamed with pride, feeling elated by their master's praise. "But I guess this is also thanks to your junior brother's help," Zhang Sanfeng said, looking at his youngest and most talented disciple. Even as a newly ascended land immortal, he felt he couldn't fully comprehend Ning Chang. Ning Chang smiled modestly, not seeking credit. Song Yunkeo eagerly added, "Master, you're right. In the past year, our junior brother has established numerous foundations for Wudeng. You should see your grand disciples first." Zhang Sanfeng turned to see the respectful group of grand disciples, stunned by their numbers and cultivation levels. Each was at least at the innate stage, with many grandmasters among them. He knew how difficult it was to train a disciple to the grandmaster level. Before Ning Chang created the Yin-Yang Wuji technique, none of the Wudeng 7 heroes were grandmasters. But now there were so many grandmaster-level grand disciples. Seeing Wudeng's growth, Zhang Sanfeng felt immense pride. "Good, very good, I'm very pleased." He laughed heartily, but soon noticed something unusual. Among the group was a small monkey standing out. "What's this?" he asked. Ning Chang stepped forward to explain. "This is Jin Ling, a Taoist boy I took in. Though a golden monkey, he has human-like intelligence and follows me in the Sutra Pavilion." Hearing that Jin Ling was Ning Chang's disciple, Zhang Sanfeng, perhaps out of affection for his disciple, called Jin Ling over. "Jin Ling, come here and let me see you." Jin Ling approached respectfully, bowing and saluting, pleasing Zhang Sanfeng even more. "Good, good, follow Chang well, this is your opportunity." Jin Ling nodded repeatedly. Zhang Sanfeng sensed Jin Ling's extraordinary nature and felt even more gratified. Looking at his disciples, he urged, "It seems a lot has happened during my seclusion. Tell me everything." The disciples laughed, and Song Yunkeo finally stopped teasing, saying, "Our junior brother has established 3 foundations for Wudeng: the Heaven Man Tomb, the 7 Stars Gathering Spirit Formation, and the Spiritual Herb Garden." Zhang Sanfeng's eyes lit up. "What is the Heaven Man Tomb?" Song Yunkeo and the others led him to the ancient trees in the distance. "This is it. On the day the dragon-slaying saber was destroyed, our junior brother established the Heaven Man Tomb before the heroes of the world. Any peerless Heaven Man expert who falls at Wudeng can be buried here." Zhang Sanfeng stood in awe, feeling the grandeur of the tomb. The intertwining auras of numerous Heaven Man paths, including swordsmanship, demonic blades, dragon-elephant golden bodies, and dragon-subduing palm intent, were palpable. He even recognized traces of familiar experts. Moreover, these paths were evolving within the tomb, giving birth to new, even more powerful paths. The continuous interplay of life and death created profound mysteries beyond his comprehension. He realized that Wudang disciples could easily comprehend these paths, making it an unparalleled foundation. "Did Chang bury all these?" he asked, stunned. Ning Chang smiled modestly. Zhang Sanfeng felt a sense of urgency. "What about the 7 stars gathering spirit formation?" Song Yuanqiao smiled. "Master, haven't you noticed any changes on Tianzhu Peak?" Zhang Sanfeng was taken aback, his eyes lighting up. He had felt that resonating with the world's power had become incredibly easy, and his body felt more comfortable. He had attributed it to his own progress, but now he realized it wasn't. "Stop teasing me," Zhang Sanfeng exclaimed, playfully tapping Song Yuanqiao with his whisk. Song Yuanqiao protested, "Master, I'm innocent. Only our junior brother can activate the 7 stars gathering spirit formation. I can't show you even if I want to." Ning Chang smiled as Zhang Sanfeng looked at him. With a flick of his finger, the celestial pillars of the 7 stars gathering spirit formation appeared around Tianzhu Peak. Each of the 7 peaks surrounding Tianzhu Peak had a pillar connecting to the sky, converging into a single point, pouring starlight and spiritual energy onto Tianzhu Peak. Zhang Sanfeng finally understood why the spiritual energy on Tianzhu Peak was so abundant. It wasn't his breakthrough, it was his junior brother's doing. Zhang Sanfeng was utterly astonished. "Such a technique. Truly divine," he praised repeatedly, looking at Ning Chang with pride. "Chang, it seems your path is becoming smoother," Ning Chang smiled, "all thanks to Master's blessings." Zhang Sanfeng shook his head, feeling that finding Ning Chang at the foot of Mount Hua was his own blessing. Ning Chang then revealed the spiritual herb garden. A river of stars poured into the garden, where rare herbs thrived, their spiritual energy surpassing other places. The garden was flourishing, with many herbs showing significant progress. A diligent figure tended to the garden, working earnestly. Zhang Sanfeng, seeing the herbs swaying, sighed, "Wudang is fortunate to have you." He addressed Ning Chang, and Song Yuanqiao and the others nodded in agreement. Ning Chang replied earnestly, "The seeds planted in the past bear fruit today. Being brought to Wudang by Master is my fortune." Without Wudang, he might have reached his current height, but not as smoothly and comfortably. Zhang Sanfeng stroked his beard, his smile never fading since seeing his disciples. His astonishment also never ceased. Today was a day of double joy. Not only had he succeeded, but he also witnessed Wudang's incredible transformation, making him very happy. After circling Tianzhu Peak, they returned to the Zhenwu Hall. Zhang Sanfeng, calming his inner shock, asked, "Tell me everything that has happened in Wudang over the past year." He had seen Wudang's foundations, but his intuition told him it wasn't all smooth sailing. The Heaven Man tomb was proof of that, and he wanted to know about the destruction of the dragon-slaying saber. If anyone had dared to bully his disciples while he was in seclusion, he wouldn't let it slide. Zhang Sanfeng looked at Song Yuanqiao, who carefully began recounting the events, starting with the dragon-slaying saber. Zhang Sanfeng listened intently. When he heard that Song Yuanqiao had chosen to bring the dragon-slaying saber back to Wudang, he showed approval. He didn't care about the minor insults from Xiaolin. Zhang Sanfeng had always acted with a clear conscience. His disciples also upheld the principle of not bullying others with their power. However, after the dragon-slaying saber was brought back to Wudang, heroes gathered at Wudang. He finally understood the origins of the Heaven Man tomb. That Dongfang Bubai, Ding Peng, and that nameless old monk dared to attack Wudang's juniors. They truly deserve a beating, Zhang Sanfeng snorted coldly. If he had been there, he wouldn't have let those 3 off easily. But when he heard that the sweeping monk from Xiaolin had descended with a Buddhist relic to oppress Ning Chang, his eyes flashed with cold light and he couldn't help but shout, "Good old Xiaolin. I didn't learn much from Xiaolin in my youth, but I stayed there for a while. Knowing I was at fault, I usually let things slide. But I didn't expect them to be so shameless. How dare they take advantage of my seclusion to descend upon Tianzhu Peak and bully my disciple with the power of a land immortal?" He was furious. Song Yuanqiao and the others had rarely seen him like this and quickly reassured him. "Master, don't worry. We didn't suffer any losses. Our junior brother summoned heavenly thunder and true fire, burning the sweeping monk's Buddhist relic to ashes. But the sweeping monk seemed to have the intention of causing more trouble, saying something about having karmic ties with our junior brother." Zhang Sanfeng's expression softened slightly, but then he frowned again. "He dares. Does he think I'm just for show? Chang, don't worry. If that old monk dares to come, I'll deal with him for you." It was clear that Zhang Sanfeng was genuinely angry. Ning Chang smiled and reassured him. "Master, there's no need to worry. If that sweeping monk dares to come to Tianju Peak, I'll show him what real power is. But for now, I prefer to focus on my cultivation." Zhang Sanfeng was surprised by Ning Chang's confidence. Seeing his disciples' many grand accomplishments, he had guessed that Ning Chang's strength was unfathomable. But he hadn't expected him to be so dismissive of the sweeping monk. Knowing Ning Chang's character, he understood that this was not arrogance but a calm confidence. Song Yuanqiao laughed. "Master, if you knew what our junior brother has done, you'd understand why he's so confident." Zhang Sanfeng listened carefully. Hearing that Ning Chang had defeated Sword Emperor Jiu with 3 swords was impressive enough. But when he heard that Ning Chang had severed the limbs of the evil Emperor Xiang Yushan on Mount Amei with his spiritual sword, he was utterly shocked. He stared at Ning Chang, feeling both proud and a bit bitter. He had thought that after becoming a land immortal, he could surpass his junior disciple and provide more protection for his disciples. But now, it seemed unlikely. He knew that while his Taiji Dao was profound, and granted him great power as a land immortal, easily defeating Xiang Yushan might still be beyond his reach. Comparing himself to his junior disciple, Ning Chang's combat prowess was terrifyingly formidable. "Chang, your immortal Dao is truly extraordinary," Zhang Sanfeng couldn't help but praise. Song Yuanqiao and the others nodded in agreement. Ning Chang smiled and said, "No matter. When I achieve the Golden Core stage, I will lead Wudang's disciples into the immortal Dao. One day, I will transform the 9 provinces into immortal land." His calm words revealed an incredibly lofty ambition. This was the first time he had expressed such a vision in front of everyone. Song Yuanqiao and the others were speechless, their eyes filled with shock. Transforming the 9 provinces into immortal land. Just hearing this was overwhelmingly impactful. Compared to their own ambitions, it was like the difference between the moon and a firefly. Zhang Sanfeng was equally shocked, not expecting Ning Chang to have such aspirations. He solemnly said, "Chang, if you have such an ambition, I will do everything in my power to help you." The 7 heroes of Wudang were also deeply moved, shouting in unison, "We will help too." Ning Chang nodded and smiled. Wudang was already a part of this vision. There was no turning back. They all laughed together, their bond as master and disciples unspoken but strong. They then discussed other changes in Wudang over the past year, such as interactions with other sects and the recruitment of new disciples. Song Yuanqiao did most of the talking, while Zhang Sanfeng listened. Song Yuanqiao had managed Wudang well, and Zhang Sanfeng was very pleased. Though Song Yuanqiao's talent wasn't the highest, his steady nature made him the best leader. Finally, Zhang Sanfeng gestured for silence and solemnly said, "Having achieved success in my seclusion, I have gained new insights into the Taiji Dao and the principles of Taiji and Yin-Yang. Since you are all here, I will share these insights with you." He had no intention of publicly lecturing at Wudang. The insights of a land immortal would be too advanced for most disciples, even the 3rd-generation ones. Even for the 7 heroes of Wudang, it would be challenging. Only Zhang Quizhin, who was close to the Heaven Man realm, might benefit. But everyone knew that the main recipient of this lecture was Ning Chang. The others were secondary. Ning Chang was indeed very eager. He had always been curious about the essence of the land immortal path. He focused intently as Zhang Sanfeng began to speak. "Yi contains Taiji, which gives birth to the 2 forms. The 2 forms give birth to the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols give birth to the 8 trigrams. The 8 trigrams determine fortune and misfortune and misfortune give rise to great achievements. Taiji divides into yin and yang, which then merge. Taiji manifests as the unity of yin and yang, while internally it divides into 2. These 2 aspects are mutually contradictory yet interdependent, inseparable. When united, they bring life. When separated, they bring death." Zhang Sanfeng's voice carried a Taoist charm as he explained his understanding of Taiji. Despite his efforts to simplify, the 7 heroes of Wudang felt like they were listening to a foreign language, unable to grasp the concepts. Only Zhang Quizhin could barely understand some parts, occasionally frowning in concentration. In contrast, Ning Chang quickly entered a state of enlightenment as soon as Zhang Sanfeng began speaking. His eyes half closed, his body swayed slightly, fully immersed in the experience. Zhang Sanfeng's insights into Taiji and Yin-Yang resonated with him, offering both similarities and new perspectives. This might influence his future understanding of reversing the 5 elements into Yin-Yang. Compared to Ning Chang, Song Yuanqiao and the others felt like struggling students next to a prodigy. They exchanged helpless smiles, their admiration for Ning Chang's growing. Zhang Sanfeng continued, Taiji gives rise to movement which generates yang. Stillness generates yin. Movement and stillness are mutually rooted. Yin and yang divide, forming the two forms. This is the evolution of Taiji into the two forms of yin and yang. Yin and yang correspond to all things in heaven and earth. This is my humble understanding for your reference. Heaven is yang, earth is yin. Men are yang, women are yin. Yin and yang evolve into the 5 elements, and the 5 elements can reverse into yin and yang. One profound statement followed another. In the Zhenwu Hall, Zhang Sanfeng's voice resonated. This was his 3rd time lecturing Ning Chang. The first was when Ning Chang began learning martial arts and created the yin-yang wuji technique, with Zhang Sanfeng imparting his insights. The second was after emerging from seclusion, when he shared his understanding of the future Taiji path. Both lectures had greatly benefited Ning Chang. Now, this 3rd lecture was the most helpful, as Zhang Sanfeng's Taiji Dao had reached a complete state, having stepped into the land immortal realm. The remaining work was just refinement. The Taiji Dao encompassed many aspects, and Zhang Sanfeng couldn't know everything. Otherwise, he would have transcended long ago. His Taiji Dao focused more on the principles of yin and yang, which were very helpful to Ning Chang. Ning Chang entered a state of deep enlightenment. His mind was filled with countless flashes of inspiration. His path was the 5 elements Dao, and he had previously considered reversing the 5 elements into yin-yang. Now this inspiration was taking shape. He also gained new insights into the correspondence between yin-yang, the 5 elements, and the world. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the sky. It began to rain, the downpour growing heavier and the thunder louder. In the dark night sky, lightning flashed and thunder dragons roared, as if splitting the heavens and earth. Zhang Sanfeng's voice had stopped at some point. He watched Ning Chang with a smile. Ning Chang opened his eyes and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Master, for imparting your wisdom. He smiled, then flew into the sky, surprising everyone. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck him, causing everyone to tense. But a green light enveloped him, easily deflecting the lightning. Zhang Sanfeng's eyes widened in surprise. Ning Chang had once gained enlightenment during a thunderstorm, creating 2 techniques, the Kiwiwood Green Primordial Shield and the Jade Pivot Heavenly Thunder technique. He had often meditated during thunderstorms since, though he hadn't created new thunder techniques. Now, inspiration struck again with all conditions in his favor. Another thunder dragon struck, seemingly punishing Ning Chang for his audacity. Ning Chang flicked his finger, releasing a terrifying deep purple lightning bolt. The 2 bolts collided and dissipated, leaving everyone in awe, even Zhang Sanfeng. Ning Chang's eyes shone brightly as new insights into thunder techniques filled his mind. The heavens have 5 elements and 5 thunders: heavenly thunder, earthly thunder, water thunder, dragon thunder, and shelling thunder. The 5 thunders also divide into yin and yang, forming 10 thunders. Jade Pivot Thunder, Divine Firmament Thunder, Great Cavern Thunder, Immortal Capital Thunder, North Pole Thunder, Supreme Unity Thunder, Purple Mansion Thunder, Jade Dawn Thunder, Supreme Firmament Thunder, and Taiji Thunder. I previously created the Jade Pivot Heavenly Thunder, not knowing it was part of the yin-yang division, and Heavenly Thunder and Earthly Thunder correspond to the yin-yang of heaven and earth. Zhang Sanfeng's lecture had given him new insights into the 5 elements, heaven and earth, and yin-yang, which he applied to thunder techniques. Ning Chang couldn't help but laugh. Facing another bolt of lightning, he flicked his finger again, releasing a pale purple lightning bolt. This is the Divine Firmament Heavenly Thunder. He then rapidly formed hand seals, releasing various lightning bolts, each with terrifying power, overshadowing the natural lightning. Song Yuanqiao and the others were stunned, barely able to keep up. They saw 4 types of lightning: deep purple, deep green, and pale green. System prompt. You gain insights into the relationship between thunder and yin-yang during the lecture. You practice and verify these insights, discovering that the Jade Pivot Heavenly Thunder is yang. You create the Immortal Dao Technique, Divine Firmament Heavenly Thunder. You create the Jade Pivot Heavenly Thunder and Divine Firmament Heavenly Thunder, understanding yin-yang thunders. You further create the Immortal Dao Techniques, Great Cavern Earthly Thunder and Immortal Capital Earthly Thunder. In one night of enlightenment, Ning Chang created 3 new thunder techniques, achieving a small mastery in thunder techniques. With the completion of heavenly and earthly thunders, his divine abilities grew even more powerful. He descended from the sky, landing before the astonished Zhang Sanfeng and the 7 heroes of Wudang feeling joyful. He bowed again. "Thank you, Master, for your guidance, which helped me comprehend thunder techniques." Zhang Sanfeng's mouth opened slightly. Then he shook his head with a wry smile. "I merely explained the basics. Your insights are due to your own talent." Even though he was accustomed to his junior disciples' extraordinary talent, he was still amazed each time. It was like explaining elementary math to someone, only for them to solve a world-class problem. The impact was indescribable. But Zhang Sanfeng felt more pride and admiration than anything else. With such a talented disciple, what regrets could he have in life? After Zhang Sanfeng emerged from seclusion, Ning Chang's life didn't change much. He continued to study the Tao and read scriptures in the Sutra Pavilion. Zhang Sanfeng, having just become a land immortal, also needed to consolidate his cultivation. However, there was one change. Zhang Sanfeng enjoyed playing with Jin Ling. Knowing the little monkey's formidable combat abilities, he often sparred with him, calling it guidance. He felt he might not be able to defeat Ning Chang, so he used Jin Ling as a sparring partner. Ning Chang could only shake his head and laugh at his master's antics, like an old child. For instance, Zhang Sanfeng was now drinking spiritual tea handed to him by Jin Ling, sighing, "Changg, this tea is excellent." Ning Chang couldn't help but laugh, knowing his master's little scheme. The spiritual tea tree had improved significantly over the past year, both in taste and efficacy. Zhang Sanfeng was clearly too embarrassed to ask directly, so he made such comments. Ning Chang waved his hand and several packets of tea appeared before Zhang Sanfeng. "These are reserved for you, Master, but use them sparingly. The next batch will take some time." Zhang Sanfeng's eyes lit up. "How can I take your things?" he said righteously, but his hands quickly stashed the tea away. "Do you need anything else?" "Master, I need to study the Tao," Ning Chang said, raising the scripture in his hand, signaling the end of the conversation. Zhang Sanfeng laughed. "Chang, I heard you have 5 spiritual swords. Lend me one. I'm planning to visit some old friends and my old weapon can't handle my true power anymore." Ning Chang didn't hesitate. "Choose whichever you like." "Master," Zhang Sanfeng pointed to the Bai Shui sword, "this one suits my Teiji true power." Ning Chang smiled. "Take it. Master, I'll forge a new one for you later." It was a small matter for him. Song Yuanqiao and the others had the 7-star swords, so making a suitable sword for his master was no big deal. Satisfied, Zhang Sanfeng left the Sutra Pavilion smiling. Ning Chang shook his head and continued reading, not suspecting anything. Zhang Sanfeng called Song Yuanqiao and the others, announcing his intention to visit friends. He declined their offer to accompany him, gave a few instructions, and left Wudang alone. "Dare to bully my disciple and talk about karma? HMPH, do you think I'm easy to bully?" He hadn't borrowed the sword to visit friends. He was going to settle scores. Note: the Bai Shui sword, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, is one of the 5 elements spiritual swords, representing the element of water. That's right, Zhang Sanfeng was planning to crash the party, specifically Shaolin's party. After hearing from Song Yuanqiao that the sweeping monk had dared to descend upon Tianzhu Peak to bully his disciple, Zhang Sanfeng was fuming. It was one thing if he was in seclusion and unaware, but now that he had successfully emerged, he couldn't let this slide. What kind of master would he be if he didn't vent this anger? Zhang Sanfeng, usually gentle and avoiding conflict, now exuded a rare, murderous aura. He had once been a secular disciple at Shaolin, but founding Wudang had nothing to do with that period. Despite Shaolin occasionally bringing it up, he always taught his disciples not to mind it. However, his leniency didn't mean others could bully his disciples without consequence. In his youth, Zhang Sanfeng had a fiery temper which had only mellowed with age and cultivation. "You like talking about karma, huh? Well, let's discuss karma properly." Shaolin was a unified entity. Whether it was Ming's Shaolin or Song's Shaolin, there was little difference. Zhang Sanfeng set his sights on Song's Shaolin and moved swiftly, covering vast distances with each step, as if shrinking the ground beneath him. As a land immortal, Zhang Sanfeng's power was fundamentally different from that of Heavenman experts. Any ordinary martial arts technique, when augmented by his true power, could unleash unparalleled might. This was the final realm of martial arts in the 9 provinces, filled with profound mysteries. At Song's Shaolin Temple, golden temples stretched endlessly, usually bustling with pilgrims and exuding a deep sense of heritage. Sacred chants often echoed from the depths of the temple, creating an aura of sanctity. This scene was far superior to Ming's Shaolin, illustrating the difference made by having a land immortal in residence. Ming's Shaolin, despite being an ancient temple, had declined with only 3 Heaven-Man monks, and they were newly ascended. Their strength was far inferior to Song's Shaolin. If another force had destroyed Ming's Shaolin, Shaolin would have immediately mobilized to seek justice. But this time, it was Ning Change and Wudeng who had brought them down. Ning Change, who had refined the sweeping monk's Buddhist relic and severed the evil emperor's limbs, was not to be trifled with. The other Shaolin branches dared not act rashly, waiting for the sweeping monk to make a move. If he ever went to Wudeng, the other branches would send reinforcements. Today, however, Song's Shaolin was not bustling with pilgrims, but rather with martial artists. Prominent figures from Song's martial world, including the Beggar Sect's Cairo Feng, Gusu Murong's Murong Fu, Dali's Prince Duan Yu and Emperor Duan Jixing, the 7 masters of Quanjin Sect, Xianxia Sect's Ding Chunkyu, Iron Palm Sect's Qiu Qianren, and even minor figures like the 7 freaks of Jiangnan and the 4 great evils had all gathered. The reason for this gathering was multifaceted. For instance, the recent turmoil in the Beggar Sect, where their top talent Cairo Feng was revealed to be a kitten, had caused a stir. Though he remained in the sect with Hong Qigong's support, it left lingering issues. TLN, kitten were a nomadic people who originated from northeastern of China, but the main reason for the gathering was to uncover the truth about the Battle of Yanmen Pass. Cairo Feng, or Xiao Feng, after learning about his heritage, wanted to get to the bottom of everything. Old matters were being brought up, dragging more secrets into the light, much to the delight of the onlookers. For example, the affair between Shaolin's abbot Xuansai and Yi Ernyang of the 4 great evils, and the revelation that their illegitimate son, Zhuzhu, had been hidden in Shaolin, astonished everyone. Then there were the tangled relationships of Duan Zhengchen with his numerous lovers, leaving Duan Yu bewildered as his romantic interests turned out to be his sisters. Next came the feud between the Xiao and Murong families. Xiao Feng and Murong Fu, the young talents of Song, known as the Southern Murong and Northern Cairo Feng, finally stood on opposing sides. The truth about the Battle of Yanmen Pass was revealed when Xiao Yuanchen and Murong Bo stepped forward, exposing Murong Bo's treachery that led to the attack on Xiao Yuanchen's family. A fierce battle ensued, thrilling the onlookers. Fathers fought fathers, sons fought sons. Except for Murong Fu, who was weaker, the rest were Heaven-Man experts, making the fight incredibly intense. But this was Shaolin's territory. At a critical moment, the sweeping monk intervened. "Amitabha, put down the butcher's knife and turn back to shore," he chanted, his presence alone stopping everyone in their tracks, including Heaven-Man experts like Xiao Feng. Everyone held their breath, stunned by the appearance of the gray-robed monk. "A land immortal, Shaolin's Buddha," they exclaimed. Shaolin disciples were elated. With Ming's Shaolin's recent defeat, their prestige had waned and they needed a boost. This was the perfect opportunity. If they could bring these experts into Shaolin, their foundation would grow even stronger. This was a tried-and-true tactic for Shaolin. The sea of suffering is boundless. Only by understanding life and death can one see through the illusions of the world, the sweeping monk said, sending a wave of true power that put Xiao Yuanchen and Murong Bo into a state of suspended animation, astonishing everyone. This was the power of a land immortal, reducing Heaven-Man experts to mere children. The onlookers didn't realize Xiao Yuanchen and Murong Bo were in a state of suspended animation and thought the sweeping monk had killed them instantly. They were horrified by his ruthlessness. They didn't know Shaolin's plan was to help Xiao Yuanchen and Murong Bo understand life and death, then induct them into Shaolin, adding 2 top-tier Heaven-Man experts to their ranks. The sweeping monk was about to make another move when a mocking voice stopped him. Tusk, after all these years, you're still up to your old tricks, putting people into suspended animation, and then reviving them to showcase your Buddhist prowess." Everyone turned to see a white-haired, white-bearded Taoist in a Taiji robe, holding a whisk. His seemingly casual words mocked Shaolin's deceit. Some recognized him and gasped, It's Wudeng's Master Zhang. I heard Master Zhang was in seclusion at Wudeng. Why is he here in Song? You're behind the times. Master Zhang recently ascended to the land immortal realm. Wow, something big is about to happen. Those in the know were excited. Zhang Sanfeng, newly ascended to land immortal, appearing at Shaolin, coupled with his mocking words and the recent conflicts between Shaolin and Wudeng, made everyone anticipate a major showdown. Shaolin disciples were also shocked, especially those from Ming's Shaolin, who felt like they were seeing Ning change again. The sweeping monk regained his composure and greeted Zhang Sanfeng with a Buddhist salute. "So it's Master Zhang of Wudang. Congratulations on your ascension to land immortal. However, your words just now were somewhat biased. Shaolin has always acted with integrity." "Integrity? Does that include bullying my disciples while I was in seclusion?" Zhang Sanfeng sneered. The sweeping monk was speechless. "Are you sure it was me bullying him and not the other way around? I lost a Buddhist relic there and took a long time to recover." Before he could speak, Zhang Sanfeng continued. "As for my so-called bias, why don't we let the martial world of song see for themselves?" He suddenly pointed, and a wave of Taiji true power fell on the seemingly lifeless bodies of Xiao Yuanchen and AudioBo. The next moment everyone gasped. The two dead men suddenly opened their eyes, looking bewildered. "What? What happened to me?" Xiao Feng was furious. "Shaolin's actions are despicable." The martial artists voiced their disapproval, their eyes filled with disdain. Putting people into suspended animation and then reviving them to make them enlightened was far from honorable. Shaolin monks, faced with such contempt, looked embarrassed. Some even lowered their heads, chanting scriptures to lessen their guilt. Xiao Yuanchen and AudioBo, realizing their situation, were enraged. The thought of being brainwashed into becoming Shaolin monks terrified them. But they couldn't resist a Buddha's power. They could only express their gratitude to Zhang Sanfeng. "Thank you, Master Zhang." The sweeping monk sighed, knowing Shaolin's plan had failed. Two potential Heavenman experts were lost, all because of Zhang Sanfeng's interference. He looked at Zhang Sanfeng, his tone losing its previous politeness. "Master Zhang, what brings you to Shaolin?" Despite facing another land immortal, the sweeping monk remained calm. He had lived for over 200 years and had been a Buddha for more than 60. Zhang Sanfeng had just ascended. How could he compare? When he was a supreme expert, Zhang Sanfeng hadn't even been born. Calling Zhang Sanfeng master was a courtesy due to their shared status as land immortals. Otherwise, Zhang Sanfeng was just a junior. With this in mind, the sweeping monk's demeanor grew colder. Zhang Sanfeng, having disrupted Shaolin's plans, was in a good mood. But this was just an appetizer. He coldly replied, "I heard Shaolin's Buddha mentioned having karma with my disciple Chang'e. Today I, Zhang Sanfeng, will settle this karma on his behalf. You came to Tianzhu Peak to bully my disciple. Now I will do the same to you. If I win, Shaolin's gates will not stand today." The martial artists were stunned, gasping in shock. Is he planning to crush Shaolin's gates alone? They were amazed by Zhang Sanfeng's audacity. This was Shaolin, home to a Buddha. Where did Master Zhang get such confidence? But they couldn't help but admire his loyalty to his disciples. Shaolin monks were equally shocked and then enraged. This was a direct challenge to Shaolin's honor. Abbot Xuanxia couldn't help but shout, "Master Zhang, we respect you as a Taoist master, but this behavior is unbecoming." Zhang Sanfeng snorted, "Whether it's becoming or not isn't for you to decide. Today I'm here to settle karma. You came to Wudang, bullied my disciple. Today I will crush Shaolin. This is our karma." He focused solely on the sweeping monk, his true power surging. The martial artists quickly retreated, knowing they couldn't withstand the aftermath of a battle between two land immortals. Xiao Yuanchen and AudioBo's feud had to be set aside. Everyone knew the main event was now the clash between two land immortals. The sweeping monk sighed, "Why force this karma upon yourself?" He chanted a Buddhist mantra, golden light enveloping him, his true power surging, the sound of chanting filling the air, captivating the onlookers. "You wouldn't understand," Zhang Sanfeng replied, his Taiji true power forming a Taiji diagram behind him, yin and yang intertwining, filled with profound mysteries. The two were ready to clash, the sky darkening, clouds swirling. Meanwhile, at Tianzhu Peak Sutra Pavilion, Ning Chang'e opened his eyes in surprise. "Why is Master fighting a land immortal?" Zhang Sanfeng had borrowed Ning Chang'e's Bai Shui sword, which was now highly spiritual, almost a spiritual weapon, and constantly nourished by Ning Chang'e's true power. Even without using a soul-binding technique, Ning Chang'e could sense it. When Zhang Sanfeng's true power clashed with the sweeping monks, Ning Chang'e immediately sensed it. Realizing where his master was and who he was fighting, he was stunned. "Master, really?" Ning Chang'e wasn't foolish. He quickly understood Zhang Sanfeng's intentions. He felt touched and amused. He hadn't suffered any real loss from the sweeping monk, just didn't want to deal with him for now. But since his master was already at Shaolin, he had to support him fully. Ning Chang put down his scripture and focused through the Bai Shui sword. At Shaolin, the clash of the two land immortals' auras had already changed the sky, creating strange phenomena. The martial artists retreated further, awestruck. They were shocked to see that Zhang Sanfeng, the newly ascended land immortal, was holding his own against the sweeping monk. The Teiji diagram behind him spun, dispersing the golden light of the Buddha. Someone mentioned the sweeping monk's age, over 200 years, twice that of Master Zhang, highlighting Zhang Sanfeng's extraordinary talent. The sweeping monk was equally surprised, finding it hard to believe he couldn't overpower Zhang Sanfeng with his aura. Zhang Sanfeng looked at him and said, "You struck my disciple at Tianzhu Peak. Today I will strike you first." With that, the sky roared with fury. Zhang Sanfeng's Teiji yin-yang diagram behind him suddenly began to spin faster, releasing waves of true power. The already turbulent clouds and winds in the sky grew even more violent. Zhang Sanfeng lightly extended a palm, gathering true power and resonating with the forces of heaven and earth. A giant palm, black on the inside and white on the outside, filled with the essence of yin and yang, descended upon the sweeping monk. The onlookers were horrified. The sight of such a yin-yang palm made their spines tingle and their hair stand on end. Even though the palm wasn't aimed at them, their blood involuntarily sped up, and their muscles tensed. The Shaolin monks were even more alarmed. This palm was far more powerful than the one the sweeping monk had used on Tianzhu Peak, which had only been a projection of his Buddhist essence. The sweeping monk's eyes grew serious as he chanted, "Master Zhang, you are overstepping. The karma between your disciple and me is not something you can take on. You still have time to retreat." Faced with the massive yin-yang palm, the sweeping monk's body radiated boundless golden light. Suddenly, the sound of Buddhist chants echoed through Shaolin, resonating with the temple. Golden light spread across the sky. The sweeping monk softly said, "I will take your palm." Golden light flowed around him like liquid, forming a Buddhist golden bell. He had used this technique on Tianzhu Peak, blocking Ning Chang's pure yang true fire until Ning Chang summoned the jade pivot heavenly thunder to break it. Now, using the same technique, its power was far greater. The golden bell was 3 meters tall, solid and formidable, showcasing the terrifying true power of the sweeping monk himself, not just a projection. Zhang Sanfeng remained unafraid. If he lacked confidence, he wouldn't have come to Shaolin to cause trouble. With a cold snort, the yin-yang energies on the giant palm grew denser. In the shocked eyes of the onlookers, the black and white palm collided with the golden bell. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed across the sky. The giant palm struck the golden bell, producing a metallic ringing that made everyone's hearts skip a beat. The golden bell's light began to shatter under the immense pressure of the yin-yang palm, shrinking from 3 meters to just over 1. Some observant individuals noticed that the sweeping monk's feet, clad in cloth shoes, had sunk into the ground. The crowd gasped, "Master Zhang is gaining the upper hand." They felt dizzy. Zhang Sanfeng had just ascended to the land immortal realm, yet he seemed even more formidable. But things weren't that simple. "Shaolin's sacred ground, cease your insolence," the sweeping monk shouted. The golden bell's light surged, expanding beyond 3 meters, pushing the yin-yang palm upward. The golden light wasn't just defensive. It pierced the palm like golden swords, riddling it with holes. The crowd was astonished, but before they could react, Zhang Sanfeng pointed again, his voice calm and resonant. "Teiji yin-yang, turn." The black and white palm reversed, the colors flowing and shifting. This wasn't just a superficial change. It signified Zhang Sanfeng's deep understanding of yin-yang. The energies flowed, solidifying the previously shattered palm, pressing down again. The golden bell's light was suppressed, the yin-yang energies eroding it, step by step. The sweeping monk's expression grew serious. He was shocked by Zhang Sanfeng's strength, despite his recent ascension. Golden light surged, the bell solidifying again. The crowd's hearts followed the ebb and flow of the battle like a roller coaster. The yin-yang palm seemed on the verge of breaking, then the golden bell seemed about to shatter. Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk stood firm, their true powers resonating with the forces of heaven and earth. Experts could see that while Zhang Sanfeng's true power was less than the sweeping monk's, his Teiji true power resonated more efficiently with the world, creating a stalemate. After several breaths, a crisp sound echoed. The golden bell shattered into countless fragments, and the black and white palm dissipated into yin-yang energies. The first clash ended in a draw. However, some observant individuals noticed that the sweeping monk's feet were slightly sunken into the ground, while Zhang Sanfeng's robe fluttered lightly, indicating he had the upper hand. The crowd's eyes widened, their breaths held. Master Zhang has just ascended to the land immortal realm, yet he has the upper hand. This was astonishing. The sweeping monk had lived for over 200 years, twice Zhang Sanfeng's age. Master Zhang was a junior in comparison. The crowd watched in awe. The sweeping monk's expression grew serious. Your Taiji Dao is impressive. No wonder you dare come to Shaolin. I admit, Master Zhang, your talent is extraordinary. Given time, you will surpass me. But today you will not crush Shaolin's gates. Master Zhang, I advise you to leave now, and I will not pursue this matter. Zhang Sanfeng replied calmly, no need for words. Today we will fight. Why force this? The sweeping monk's body radiated golden light, forming an unparalleled golden body. The Buddhist golden body was a hallmark of Buddhist masters, but the sweeping monk's golden body was at a higher level, known as the Golden Buddha True Body. The Golden Buddha True Body made the sweeping monk appear like a Buddha incarnate. He moved, his body instantly appearing before Zhang Sanfeng, his palm extending, golden light condensed on it. The crowd focused on his withered hand, filled with Buddhist light. Zhang Sanfeng's eyes grew serious. Black and white energies swirled around him. He held his whisk in his left hand, tracing intricate patterns with his right, extending his palm. A short sound echoed as their palms met and separated. The impact was far less dramatic, but both men trembled, their bodies flying back. Only they knew the true power clash that had occurred in that instant. Zhang Sanfeng, newly ascended, had slightly less true power, but his Taiji Dao compensated. Your Golden Buddha True Body is indeed extraordinary, Zhang Sanfeng praised, stepping forward, his right hand forming a fist, elegantly striking at the sweeping monk. Taiji Fist and Taiji Sword were Zhang Sanfeng's dual masterpieces. The sweeping monk, not to be outdone, used his Golden Buddha True Body and Shaolin's ultimate techniques. The so-called 72 supreme skills were all mastered. The true power of a land immortal, enhanced by their unique path, resonated with the forces of heaven and earth, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. The two clashed, exchanging hundreds of moves in an instant. The sky and earth were filled with their shadows. Despite their efforts to control the impact, some residual energy still affected the crowd, making them pale with shock. The battle proved that Zhang Sanfeng was on par with the sweeping monk, a remarkable feat. Master Zhang is indeed a prodigy. I heard Master Zhang wasn't particularly outstanding in his youth, even less so than the three monks of Duer. But in middle age, he had an epiphany and soared to greatness. Master Zhang is a late bloomer, now a land immortal. If he continues like this, he will be among the peak of land immortals. The crowd marveled. The sweeping monk was equally shocked. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't defeat Zhang Sanfeng. Such talent was clearly superior. But Zhang Sanfeng wasn't satisfied. He had come to crush Shaolin and avenge his disciple. He retreated, drawing the Bai Shui sword from his waist. My old sword is no longer suitable. Today I will borrow my disciple Chang's spiritual sword to defeat you. With the Bai Shui sword in hand, Zhang Sanfeng's white hair fluttered, his spirit soaring. Borrowing Ning Chang's sword served two purposes: needing a sword to bear his true power and giving his disciple a sense of participation. The crowd was shocked, including the sweeping monk who stared at the sword. That's the little immortal's sword. The little immortal used this sword to sever the evil emperor's limbs on Mount Amei. Will we see a repeat today? If the little immortal is here, today will be truly spectacular. The crowd's eyes lit up, especially Xiao Feng, who had missed seeing Ning Chang on Tianzhu Peak and longed for the chance. With the Bai Shui sword, Zhang Sanfeng's power surged. Ning Chang, sensing the battle, smiled. With the Bai Shui sword, Zhang Sanfeng's resonance with the forces of heaven and earth increased significantly. The sweeping monk's expression changed. He tried to crush the black and white sword energy with his Golden Buddha True Body, but the sword energy, filled with Taiji's mysteries, tore through the golden light, leaving wounds. The sweeping monk was injured. Xiao Yuanshan and Murongbo were stunned. They knew the sweeping monk's power, but Zhang Sanfeng had injured him. The crowd was in shock. Zhang Sanfeng pressed his advantage. With the Bai Shui sword, his Taiji sword's power soared, shifting the balance in his favor. The sweeping monk, despite his efforts, was suppressed. The Golden Buddha True Body began to crack. If it shattered, his essence would be severely damaged, potentially ending his path. The crowd watched in awe. Zhang Sanfeng's strength and the sword's power were undeniable. The monks of Shaolin were anxious and fearful. If the sweeping monk was defeated, it would be a disaster for Shaolin. Abbot Xianxia took a deep breath and shouted, "Masters, assist the Buddha." Originally, the battle was between Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk. If Shaolin used numbers, they would be ridiculed. But now, if the sweeping monk lost, no one could stop Zhang Sanfeng. Xianxia shouted, "Master Zhang, we respect you as a Taoist master. But if you use a spiritual sword to suppress our Buddha, we will not hesitate to use numbers." As he spoke, chants echoed from behind the monks. 4 elderly heavenman monks, more powerful than the 3 monks of Dewar, stepped forward, followed by 14 other monks, both old and middle-aged, all highly skilled. "Form the 18 Arhats formation." The crowd was astonished. But they wondered, how could heavenman monks affect a battle between land immortals? Then they saw the 4 elderly monks sitting in a circle, the others supporting them, their faces red with effort. A golden relic rose, radiating Buddhist light. Ming's Shaolin had relics, and so did Song's Shaolin. Zhang Sanfeng's expression grew serious. Another Buddha-level power would be difficult to handle. But before he could react, far away on Tianzhu Peak, Ning Chang's eyes grew cold. "Bullying my master? No way." His remaining 4 spiritual swords trembled, transmitting their power. Meanwhile, on Mount Xiaoshi, a fierce sword hum echoed, drawing everyone's attention. The Bai Shui sword in Zhang Sanfeng's hand vibrated wildly, emitting unprecedented waves. The swords on Mount Xiaoshi resonated, and the martial artists were terrified. This was the little immortal's sword, and it was reacting. TLN, Shaolin be like, now we'd win. Everyone stared in awe at the spiritual sword in Zhang Sanfeng's hand. When he first mentioned it was Ning Chang's sword, the crowd had high expectations. However, while the sword significantly boosted Zhang Sanfeng's power, it didn't initially display the legendary might that had cleaved the evil emperor on Mount Imei. But now, as Shaolin broke the martial ethic code by using numbers against one, the spiritual sword finally reacted. Zhang, the sword's hum echoed across the sky. On Mount Xiaoshi, thousands of swords resonated in unison. Swordsmen from various sects struggled to hold onto their swords, which trembled uncontrollably, as if paying homage. The sweeping monk's expression grew even more serious, and the Shaolin monks, including Abbot Xianxia, turned pale, feeling a chilling fear. They knew of Ning Chang's feat on Mount Xiaoshi, where he severed evil Emperor Xiang Yushin's limbs. Seeing their actions seemingly anger the spiritual sword, they felt lost and panicked. Zhang Sanfeng, however, felt a bit embarrassed. He had told Ning Chang he was borrowing the sword to visit friends, not expecting his disciple to sense the situation even without soul binding. Reactions varied, but the Bai Shui sword's sharpness was undeniable, aimed at the Shaolin monks forming the 18 Arhats formation. The key wasn't the formation, but the Buddha relic. On Tianzhu Peak, the Ming Shaolin Abbot Kongwen had sacrificed his body, with the sweeping monk's Buddhist essence, to unleash near-land immortal power. Now Song Shaolin, led by 4 heavenman monks, used the Arhats formation and Buddhist secret techniques to activate the relic, producing true land immortal power. This showcased Song Shaolin's profound heritage as a martial arts holy land. The Buddha relic's increasing power slightly diverted attention from the Bai Shui sword. The battlefield now had 4 forces: Zhang Sanfeng, the sweeping monk, the Buddha relic, and the spiritual sword, all at the land immortal level, heightening the crowd's anticipation. The little immortal's sword is finally showing its power. This is going to be spectacular. I knew it couldn't be just that powerful earlier. Ha, Shaolin's numbers game backfired. If not, the spiritual sword might not have shown its true power. True, but Master Zhang came to crush Shaolin's gates. Shaolin's use of their heritage to assist the Buddha at the last moment is understandable. Still, I can't stand Shaolin's hypocritical monks. But the little immortal's sword alone might not match the Buddha relic. The relic's power seems only slightly weaker than Master Zhang and the sweeping monk. The crowd was startled. The spiritual sword's power on Mount Imei came from a 3-sword formation. Now, with only 1 sword, could it match that power? The Shaolin monks thought the same, regaining some composure. Abbot Xianxia shouted, "Wudeng came prepared. Let's see if your master and disciple are stronger or if Shaolin's heritage prevails." "Masters, please assist," he bowed to the elderly monks. The Buddha relic trembled violently. Buzz! Zhang Sanfeng's eyes grew cold. The Bai Shui sword stopped trembling, emitting intense spiritual power. In an instant, it split into 5 sword shadows. Each shadow held the essence of the 5 element spiritual swords: the Golden Edge sword, Qingyuan sword, and others. The shadows, arranged in a line, attacked the giant Buddha finger, while the Bai Shui sword remained in Zhang Sanfeng's hand to aid him. Ning Chang, understanding his master's pride, chose to only block the Buddha relic's power, leaving the sweeping monk to Zhang Sanfeng. Zhang Sanfeng laughed heartily. "With my disciples' help, I will settle this karma today. Sweeping monk, watch closely." He charged at the sweeping monk with renewed vigor. The battlefield now had two main duels: Zhang Sanfeng versus the sweeping monk and the sword shadows versus the Buddha relic. The crowd watched intently, eager to see the outcome. Buzzing, the sword shadows released streams of sword energy, attacking the Buddha finger. Each sword energy held the power of the five elements: wood, metal, water, fire, and earth, combining in unique ways to enhance their power. The Buddha finger, though powerful, was blocked by the relentless sword energy. The Buddha relic's golden light intensified, but the monks turned pale, unable to withstand the sword energy's onslaught. With a loud crack, the Buddha finger shattered into countless fragments, leaving the monks spitting blood and looking desolate. The crowd fell silent, awed by the five sword shadows suspended in the sky. They realized the true might of the little immortal. Xiao Feng clenched his fists, witnessing a glimpse of the little immortal's power for the first time. The Shaolin monks, seeing the Buddha relic blocked, were filled with despair. The elderly monks exchanged glances, chanting softly, "If I don't go to hell, who will? For the Buddha, we sacrifice ourselves." They couldn't watch the sweeping monk's defeat, which would disgrace Shaolin. Abbot Xianxia and others felt ashamed, some even crying. The 18 monks in the Arhat's formation shouted, "With our lives, we protect Shaolin with the Buddha relic." Blood spurted from their mouths, their life essence merging with the relic, amplifying its power. The Buddha relic's golden light surged, reflecting the crowd's shock. Ning Chang, sitting on his spiritual jade platform, remained unmoved, coldly snorting, "This trick again?" On Tianzhu Peak, Kongwen had sacrificed his life, and now Shaolin repeated it. Ning Chang didn't care. Five-element sword formation, rise! On Mount Xiaoshi, the Buddha relic's golden light formed a 3-meter-tall golden Buddha, lifelike and awe-inspiring. The crowd, stunned, saw the five sword shadows grow into giant swords surrounding the Buddha. The swords transformed, each embodying a divine beast. The golden edge sword with a white tiger, the Qingyuan sword with a green dragon, the Bai Shui sword with a black tortoise, the Xiaofu sword with a vermilion bird, and the Haodu sword with a qilin. The divine beasts formed a mystical connection, rotating with the five elements' power. The golden Buddha, though powerful, was outmatched. The divine beasts' combined power trapped the Buddha, preventing its energy from reaching Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk's battlefield. The Buddha, seemingly aware, looked up as a massive five-colored sword energy descended from the sky. The five-element sword formation, combining the five elements' power, was far stronger than the three-talent sword formation used on Mount Imei. Though only sword shadows, their power rivaled the previous formation. If Xiang Yushan were here, he would be defeated again. With a thunderous roar, the sword energy descended, tearing through the sky. The crowd, blinded by the five-colored light, finally understood the overwhelming power Ning Chang wielded. Xiao Yuanshan and AudioBo, watching in shock, felt defeated. Their decades of sacrifice to learn Shaolin's secrets seemed meaningless compared to the little immortal's power. The elderly monks, using their last strength, activated the Buddha relic. The golden Buddha, radiating boundless light, struck at the descending sword energy. But the five elements' power, unstoppable, shattered the Buddha's attacks, obliterating it in an instant. The Shaolin monks, seeing the Buddha's defeat, were filled with despair. The elderly monks, using their last breath, sat in meditation, their bodies turning to dust. The golden Buddha, with a final effort, rose to meet the sword energy, but was annihilated in a blinding explosion. As the light faded, the crowd saw the battlefield. The golden Buddha was gone, and the five sword shadows remained, trembling slightly. The Buddha relic's power had been utterly destroyed. Ning Chang, sensing the relic's essence within the Qingyuan sword shadow, smiled. While others thought the relic was shattered, he had absorbed it, gaining a valuable resource. On Mount Xiaoshi, the crowd stared in awe at the five sword shadows, realizing the true power of the little immortal. They now knew that Zhang Sanfeng, despite his recent ascension, might not be Wudang's strongest. Who knows how powerful the little immortal will be when he ascends to the land immortal realm? It's unimaginable. Such talent is unheard of in the 9 provinces. Even a fraction of it would make me a supreme expert. How unfair is the world? The swords seem to be withdrawing. Even if they don't intervene, Shaolin is finished. Look over there! The crowd turned to see Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk battling in the sky, the fight nearing its end. Master Zhang is winning, someone whispered, trembling with excitement. With everyone's attention previously drawn to the spiritual sword projections and the Buddha relic, they now turned to Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk, realizing the battle was nearing its end. The Jianghu guests were visibly shaken. Zhang Sanfeng, who had just ascended to the land immortal realm, was dominating the sweeping monk, a 200-year-old land immortal. Such talent and prowess were extraordinary. High in the sky, the sweeping monk's golden Buddha true body had lost its previous brilliance. The golden light had dimmed, showing signs of fragmentation, with bloodstains marring its surface. The sweeping monk was in poor condition, his eyes dull. Zhang Sanfeng, though also injured with a torn robe and a broken whisk, was in far better shape. He was just ascended to land immortal and already this powerful. In 100 years, he could easily defeat the Buddha. No need for 100 years. 20 years should suffice. Master Zhang's Teiji Dao is profound. If he hadn't focused on it, he might have ascended earlier. But without the Teiji Dao, his combat power wouldn't be this formidable. Just ascended and already comparable to a 200-year-old Buddha. Both master and disciple are such prodigies, it's hard to know what to say. I think the little immortal is even more monstrous. Not yet a land immortal, but already this powerful. When he ascends, he might surpass Master Zhang. Wu Deng is destined to rise, the crowd murmured in awe, their expressions complex. Ning Chang's spiritual sword had shattered the Buddha relic, and now Zhang Sanfeng was beating the sweeping monk. Both feats were astonishing. The battle's dynamics shifted rapidly. Both Zhang Sanfeng and the sweeping monk sensed the five-element sword formation slicing the golden Buddha, their hearts shaken. Zhang Sanfeng felt a mix of shock and pride. Hearing about Ning Chang's feat on Mount Amei was one thing, but witnessing the five-element sword formation in action was another. A single spiritual sword could achieve such a feat. Zhang Sanfeng was certain he wasn't a match for his disciple, but he felt immense pride. Seeing the sword shadows dissipate without intervening in his battle, he was even more satisfied. Some things were meant for the master to handle. Zhang Sanfeng's fighting spirit sword. The sweeping monk, however, was shaken and panicked. His composure shattered, and he struggled against Zhang Sanfeng's relentless attacks, bloodstains appearing on his Buddha body. Two forces turn yin-yang unite, Zhang Sanfeng shouted. The Bai Shui sword's black and white energies transformed into giant serpents, intertwining and attacking the sweeping monk with immense force. The sweeping monk was at his limit. Shaolin had no more resources to intervene in this land immortal battle. They could only watch in despair. With a crisp sound, the sweeping monk fell from the sky, landing before Shaolin's gates, bloodied and tattered. The golden Buddha true body was shattered. Zhang Sanfeng descended, his expression calm. He had no joy in defeating the sweeping monk, nor did he intend to kill him. His goal was to avenge his disciple, not to destroy Shaolin. The crowd watched in awe, realizing the clear victor. Respectful gazes turned to Zhang Sanfeng and the Bai Shui sword. Zhang Sanfeng spoke calmly. Today, I borrowed my disciple's sword to break your Buddha body. It's not a fair victory. He didn't hide the fact that without the Bai Shui sword, he would have only had a slight advantage. The sweeping monk, sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, hands in prayer, responded, "The power of weapons is also a form of strength. Master Zhang's talent surpasses mine. In 10 years, you could defeat me without the sword. Master Zhang, please finish it. I only hope this karma remains between us and doesn't involve Shaolin." Zhang Sanfeng shook his head, smiling. "You don't need to provoke me. I'm here to settle karma, not to kill. You came to Wudeng and bullied my disciple. Today I repay the favor. If you're not satisfied, come to Wudeng any time." He glanced at the deceased monks. Their choice was their own, not mine. They could have lived. Shaolin monks chanted in sorrow, understanding Zhang Sanfeng's stance. He wasn't here to kill, but to settle a score. The sweeping monk sighed, feeling ashamed. "It seems I was too attached." With his Buddha body shattered, he seemed to gain clarity, recalling his 200 years at Shaolin. Despite mostly meditating, he had cherished moments with his sect. "Today's karma is my own doing. Thank you, Master Zhang, for helping me see it." He addressed Zhang Sanfeng as Master, a sign of respect. Zhang Sanfeng nodded, sensing the monk's newfound clarity, his injuries even seeming to heal slightly. "Please convey my apologies to your disciple," the sweeping monk requested. Zhang Sanfeng nodded, but he hadn't forgotten his purpose. "Today I destroy Shaolin's gates to settle the karma. Any objections?" Master Zhang, please proceed. The sweeping monk, though sad, nodded. The Shaolin monks wept, but Zhang Sanfeng remained resolute. He struck with a giant yin-yang palm, destroying half of Shaolin. The crowd was stunned. The 1,000-year-old Shaolin was half destroyed. They looked at Zhang Sanfeng with reverence. The sweeping monk, supported by his monks, bowed to Zhang Sanfeng. Master Zhang's teachings will be remembered. He then addressed the Jianghu guests. After today, Shaolin will close its doors for 60 years, not involving itself in Jianghu matters. Please leave. The monks, sorrowful, returned to the remaining half of Shaolin. Zhang Sanfeng's actions were measured, and the sweeping monk's promise showed they wouldn't hold a grudge. Zhang Sanfeng nodded, his goal achieved. Endless hatred led nowhere. The Taiji Dao embraced both hardness and softness. With this thought, Zhang Sanfeng smiled, feeling enlightened. However, he glanced at the Bai Shui sword and sighed. He had relied on his disciples' help and felt a bit awkward. The Jianghu guests were in an uproar. Shaolin, the sacred Buddhist ground, was closing its doors for 60 years. This elevated Wudang's reputation even more. As Zhang Sanfeng prepared to leave, the crowd bowed in respect. He smiled warmly, a stark contrast to his battle demeanor. Suddenly, he noticed the distinct robes of the Demon Sect, recalling his past with Wang Qingyang and Huang Yaoshi, and smiled at the Demon Seven. Are you disciples of Master Qingyang, the Demon Seven? The seven, usually unnoticed, were startled to be addressed by Zhang Sanfeng. Ma Yu, the leader, quickly replied, "We are unworthy disciples of our master. What guidance does Master Zhang have?" Like the Wudang Seven heroes, the Demon Seven were in an awkward position. Wang Qingyang, a supreme master, had advanced to the Heaven Man realm, but his disciples were average. Zhang Sanfeng waved his hand. "No need for formality. I have a connection with your master. Tell him I will fulfill my promise soon." Promise? What promise? The Jianghu guests were curious, speculating about Zhang Sanfeng's past with Wang Qingyang. Ma Yu, realizing something, glanced at the Bai Shui sword and quickly bowed. "I will convey your message to my master." Zhang Sanfeng nodded, recalling how he, Wang Qingyang, and Huang Yaoshi had found Ning Chang at the foot of Mount Hua. Though Ning Chang chose him, he felt he had taken an opportunity from the others. They had agreed to visit Demon Sect and Peach Blossom Island once Ning Chang grew up. Though Ning Chang was only 10, his fame and power were unmatched. Zhang Sanfeng decided it was time to fulfill the promise, not waiting for adulthood. He wanted to clear his conscience and ensure Ning Chang's as well. After encouraging the Demon Seven, Zhang Sanfeng left gracefully. The crowd, looking at the ruined Shaolin, felt immense respect for him. Zhang Sanfeng didn't rush back to Wudang. He had other friends to visit and wanted to ease his awkwardness. Ning Chang, amused, but he wasn't in a hurry. The Buddha relic was safe in the Bai Shui sword. Zhang Sanfeng's destruction of Shaolin's gates quickly spread through Jianghu, causing a sensation. People marveled at his strength, having just ascended to land immortal and already defeating an old master, forcing Shaolin to close its doors for 60 years. Ning Chang's feat with the spiritual sword also became widely known. Previously needing 3 swords to suppress the evil emperor, now a single sword displayed immense power. Some speculated about the power of all 4 swords together, though only a few guessed Ning Chang had mastered the 5-element swords. Ning Chang's reputation soared, being hailed as the strongest below the land immortal realm. This title was highly esteemed, given the vast number of experts in the 9 provinces. Wudang's fame grew, securing its place as a sacred Taoist site, respected even by emperors. Zhang Sanfeng's words to the Demon Seven sparked curiosity about his promise to Wang Qingyang. The Jianghu guests' gossiping hearts were ablaze with speculation. Some speculated that Zhang Sanfeng had made a promise to Wang Qingyang in his early years. This brought up old stories from 10 years ago when many experts gathered at Mount Hua in the Song dynasty to resolve disputes over the 9-yin manual, with Zhang Sanfeng as a witness. At that time, Zhang Sanfeng and Wang Qingyang must have had some interaction. If I'm not mistaken, Master Zhang's centenary celebration is approaching. Now that he's ascended to the land immortal realm and Wudang has become a new Taoist holy land, his centenary celebration will surely be grand. I bet he's inviting Master Qingyang to the celebration. This theory gained the most support. It was close to the truth, but only Zhang Sanfeng, Wang Qingyang, and Huang Yaoshi knew about their encounter with the infant Ning Chang at the foot of Mount Hua 10 years ago. If the truth were known, it would cause a sensation. Regardless, Zhang Sanfeng's words to the Quanjin Seven boosted the Quanjin Sect's reputation. A newly ascended land immortal with ties to the Quanjin Sect, even though Wang Qingyang was the central divinity of the Song dynasty, benefited from this connection. In the Quanjin Sect, Ma Yu and the others respectfully recounted Zhang Sanfeng's words to Wang Qingyang. Wang Qingyang sighed, "Master Zhang is truly a Taoist master. Our agreement was merely verbal, yet he remembered it even after ascending to the land immortal realm." Many forget their friends and promises after achieving greatness, but Zhang Sanfeng still valued the Quanjin Sect, which moved Wang Qingyang deeply. Although he was now a top-tier heaven man expert, he still felt inferior to the infant they had once found. Thinking of this, Wang Qingyang couldn't help but smile bitterly, but he quickly accepted it. Ning Chang's innate talent was evident even as a baby, and he regretted not having the chance to take him as a disciple. The Quanjin Seven, hearing their master's sigh, were curious. What was the verbal agreement? Who else was involved besides Master Zhang and their master? But they didn't dare ask, only listening as Wang Qingyang instructed. "From today, have all Quanjin disciples copy our Taoist scriptures." Ma Yu was shocked. "Master, even the core scriptures." Those were the sect's most guarded texts, never shared. He couldn't understand why his master suddenly gave this order. Wang Qingyang didn't hesitate. "Yes, complete it quickly. Ma Yu, you are in charge." The disciples, shocked, bowed and accepted the task. Wang Qingyang's thoughts drifted back to 10 years ago. He had agreed to be a half-master to Ning Chang, but now, seeing Ning Chang's monstrous talent, he felt he couldn't fulfill that role. However, he could still form a good relationship. Knowing Ning Chang loved Taoist scriptures, he decided to offer them as a gesture. He wondered what the 10-year-old Ning Chang was like now. Peach Blossom Island. A scholar in a green robe played a jade flute by the sea, while a beautiful woman and a lively little girl stood behind him. The girl, delicate and spirited, was destined to be a stunning beauty. This was Huang Yaoshi's family. The Eastern heretic Huang Yaoshi, his wife Feng Heng, and their daughter Huang Rong. In this world, Huang Yaoshi had obtained a protective elixir for his wife, so she hadn't died in childbirth. His temperament had softened, and his disciples thrived on Peach Blossom Island, making it a significant force. After all, the Eastern heretic was one of the Song dynasty's 5 greats and a top-tier heaven man expert. "Yaoshi, Master Zhang appeared at Shaolin and mentioned your old agreement with Master Qingyang's disciples," Feng Heng said softly. Huang Yaoshi, wrapping a cloak around his wife, smiled. "I know. It seems Master Zhang has a broad mind and hasn't forgotten our old agreement." Young Huang Rong, curious, asked, "Father, what agreement?" Huang Yaoshi chuckled. "I arranged a marriage for you back then. Now the groom is coming." Huang Rong blushed, hiding behind her mother and making faces at her father. "Father, you're embarrassing. Mother, scold him." Huang Yaoshi and Feng Heng laughed. Feng Heng, worried, said, "Yaoshi, you arranged this marriage with Master Zhang. Although it's an elder's decision, we Jianghu people value freedom. I've heard the little immortal is extraordinarily talented and devoted to his sect. If he agrees, Ronger will have a great husband." "But what if he doesn't?" Feng Heng worried that Ning Chang's brilliance might overshadow her daughter. Although Huang Rong was beautiful and talented, she couldn't compare to Ning Chang, who had defeated the evil emperor at 10. She feared Ning Chang might reject the marriage, hurting her daughter. Huang Yaoshi, serious, then shook his head. "Master Zhang isn't like that. If the little immortal agrees, it's great. If not, we can't force it. As long as he doesn't act arrogantly, it's fine. From what I've heard, he's not that kind of person. Whether we gain or lose, it's fate. Don't worry, Hanger." He smiled at Huang Rong. "If he doesn't agree, Father will find you an even better husband." Huang Rong, listening, was curious about her future husband. She had heard stories about Ning Chang from her senior siblings. Huang Yaoshi and Feng Heng walked hand in hand, discussing how to host Ning Chang if he came. They wanted to show proper hospitality. The Quanjin Sect and Peach Blossom Island were busy preparing for the old promises. Meanwhile, land immortals across the 9 provinces were secretly amazed by Zhang Sanfeng's combat prowess. At Mount Longhu, the old celestial master looked up at the sky, full of emotion. "Wudeng has produced a genius. Zhang Sanfeng, after years of accumulation, has such power just after ascending to the land immortal realm. In 60 years, I might only be his equal." His disciples were shocked. The old celestial master had dominated Jianghu for centuries, far stronger than most land immortals. Mount Longhu's status largely depended on him. But now, hearing his high praise for Zhang Sanfeng, they were puzzled. Zhang Lingyu couldn't help but laugh. Master, you're too modest. Master Zhang is talented, but catching up to you is still hard. They revered their master greatly. The old celestial master shook his head, smiling. Without reaching the land immortal realm, they couldn't understand Zhang Sanfeng's feat of defeating the sweeping monk. And Wudeng had an even more monstrous little immortal. He sighed both for Zhang Sanfeng's brilliance and for the likely shift in the Taoist hierarchy in the future. But he was calm and open-minded. Soon, Master Zhang's centenary celebration will gather heroes from all over. Many kingdoms will send representatives. Prepare well. Yes, Zhang Lingyu and the others bowed, feeling the weight of the upcoming event. With many Heavenman experts and possibly land immortals attending, it would be a grand occasion. In the city of Liang, Emperor Wang Xianji stood on the city wall, listening to the discussions below, his eyes flashing with surprise. A newly ascended land immortal defeating a 200-year-old Buddha was extraordinary. The Taiji Dao, truly profound, he thought, feeling both admiration and a desire to fight. He had a talent for learning from others' martial arts, refining his own. The more talented his opponent, the more he could learn. Perhaps I should visit Wudeng sometime, he mused. The little immortal had piqued his interest, and now Master Zhang had too, but he decided to wait. Not yet, I'll go later. He closed his eyes, sensing the world. Meanwhile, in an unknown underground palace in the Sui dynasty, faint screams echoed, quickly silenced. Black-clad figures stood outside the hall, trembling. Ning Changge, you won't die well. The final scream ended and the figures shuddered. Inside, a cold voice commanded, bring me another demon seed in 3 hours. Yes, evil emperor. The black-clad figures left. Inside, Xiang Yushan, pale and surrounded by corpses, sat cross-legged. Though his aura wasn't as strong as before, his severed limbs had regrown. His eyes were filled with pain and hatred. Little immortal, I, Xiang Yushan, have fallen to this state after 100 years. You must die. He had cultivated the Tao heart-planting demon technique for years, using demon seeds to restore his power. But his reserves were nearly depleted after the Mount Emei incident. If only I had absorbed the traitors from the Yin Kui sect, my power would be restored, he thought, his face darkening. He had planned to refine them later, but the Mount Emei incident had left him crippled. If not for his unique true power, he would have been permanently disabled. He vowed revenge. Once I recover, I'll hunt down the Yin Kui sect and reclaim the evil emperor relic to enhance my power. Recalling the 3 talents sword formation, he felt a chill. He wouldn't confront Ning Changge until he regained his peak strength. The boy was too monstrous. Suddenly, he sensed a change outside and shouted, "Who's there?" A Buddhist chant echoed, "Evil Emperor, no need to panic. I'm here to propose a collaboration." The Jianghu was in turmoil. Zhang Sanfeng's destruction of Xiaolin spread, shocking many. Land immortals understood its significance. Zhang Sanfeng would soon be among the strongest. Wudeng disciples, hearing the news, were both amused and proud. Their master, an old trickster, had said he was visiting friends, but ended up smashing Xiaolin's gates. They admired his protective nature. Wudeng disciples walked with pride, boasting both a monstrous little immortal and an invincible grandmaster. Zhang Sanfeng, after wandering for a while, finally returned to Wudeng. In the library, Zhang Sanfeng returned the Bai Shui sword to Ning Changge, sipping spiritual tea. Ning Changge smiled. "Master, was your visit to friends successful?" Zhang Sanfeng laughed. "Very successful." He didn't mention Xiaolin, knowing his disciple was aware but not wanting to admit it. Ning Changge, amused, said, "Did my Bai Shui sword come in handy?" "Very handy, especially for cutting Buddha bodies." Zhang Sanfeng stopped mid-sentence, looking innocent. Ning Changge laughed, producing a black and white sword. "I made this for you, master. It's a Taiji sword better suited for you than the Bai Shui sword." Zhang Sanfeng's eyes lit up. He took the sword, feeling its power. "A good sword. Does it have a name?" "You can name it master." "Then it's the Taiji sword." Zhang Sanfeng, delighted, felt it perfectly matched him, even more than the Bai Shui sword. "Thank you, Changge," he said, touched. Ning Changge smiled. "You worked hard for me, master. I had to show my appreciation." Zhang Sanfeng, embarrassed, quickly left. "I'll be in seclusion for a few days." Ning Changge laughed, then focused on the Bai Shui sword, a Buddha relic appearing in his hand. Ning Changge examined the Buddha relic in his hand with his spiritual sense. Its pure spiritual light far surpassed the previous one from Kongwen, due to both the higher quality of the relic and less damage incurred. Ning Changge's eyes gleamed with joy. This relic, if combined with Zhu fruit to make a pill, could benefit even those in the foundation establishment stage. This was a rare spiritual item. Ning Chang's gaze shifted to the spiritual herb garden. Xiaofu was diligently weeding, her dedication evident. The spiritual energy in the garden made the weeds tough, beyond the ability of ordinary martial artists to cut. Fortunately, Xiaofu's body benefited from the spiritual land, and her martial arts progressed rapidly. Her pure heart and unique ability to sense spiritual energy allowed her to absorb the spiritual essence from the herbs in a special way, slowly transforming her. Ning Chang observed her changes, akin to the initial formation of a special physique related to spiritual herbs. He was intrigued and continued to study it, considering it similar to the innate abilities of the golden spirit monkey. Perhaps it could be called the herbal spirit body, he mused, watching Xiaofu absorb the spiritual essence. However, his focus soon shifted to the Zhu fruit in the garden. Thanks to the abundant spiritual energy, fertile soil, and time-accelerating enchantments, the Zhu fruit seed had sprouted and grown into a small tree. A tiny fruit hung at the top, still slightly green and unripe. Once I reach the foundation establishment stage and the Zhu fruit matures, combining it with the relic to make a pill will help me advance to the mid-foundation establishment stage, he thought, storing the relic in his storage ring. He didn't need to make the pill now, as he had enough spiritual energy. Even a relic pill wouldn't help him ascend to the foundation establishment stage at this moment. Ning Chang looked inward, seeing the 5-element spiritual tree sapling growing in his dantian, glowing with 5-colored spiritual light. Once it matured, he would reach the foundation establishment stage. His spiritual energy, fully converted to spiritual liquid, nourished the tree daily. This process couldn't be rushed. He estimated it would take about a month for the sapling to grow into a small tree. However, he felt a sense of incompleteness in his state of mind, despite his calm and determined pursuit of the Tao. His spiritual energy circulated as he performed a small karma technique, gaining insight. Perhaps I should descend the mountain, he realized, recalling his arrival in this world 10 years ago and meeting his master and the others, a significant karmic event. With a smile, he decided to wait for Zhang Sanfeng to finish his seclusion before discussing his plan. Closing his eyes, he summoned various 5-element spiritual items from his storage ring. The 5 elements essence was absorbed by the 5-element spiritual tree in his dantian, and the 5-element spiritual swords beside him. The swords were at a critical point of transformation, ready to gain true spiritual nature. Soon, they would unleash formidable power even without Ning Chang's control. A few days passed quickly for Ning Chang. Zhang Sanfeng's feat of breaking Shaolin's gates had spread to the Ming dynasty, attracting more sects to visit Wudang. Many elderly experts sought entry into Wudang's heavenly tomb, enhancing its reputation. The golden spirit monkey, now a small monkey, had progressed rapidly. Ning Chang estimated it was close to achieving a Forjiang true form, making it Wudang's 3rd land immortal level combatant. Only Ning Chang knew this. The Wudang 7 heroes also worked hard. Zhang Quizhen was nearing the Heaven Man realm, and his brothers trained diligently, aiming to use the Big Dipper sword formation to combat land immortals, reducing reliance on their master and junior brother. One day, while Ning Chang meditated in the library, the 5-element spiritual swords glowed intermittently. He opened his eyes, pleased. The swords were on the verge of gaining spiritual nature. He placed his Taoist scripture back on the shelf and focused on the swords. With a wave, various 5-element spiritual items appeared, each containing different amounts of spiritual essence. These were gifts from visiting sects, many containing spiritual energy. Ning Chang ignited a pure yang true fire, enveloping the items in blue flames, refining them into pure 5-elements essence. Gather the 5 elements essence to help you gain spiritual nature, he chanted, guiding the essence into the swords. The swords vibrated joyfully, their light stabilizing and deepening. Buzz, waves of energy spread from the library. The golden spirit monkey, meditating, opened its eyes in surprise, sensing the birth of 5 beings like itself. Though improbable, it acknowledged Ning Chang's extraordinary abilities. Xiaofu, watering the spiritual herbs, felt the joyful energy, recognizing the familiar presence of the Qingyuan, Xixiao, and golden edge swords. She smiled. "Congratulations, little ones," and continued her work. Zhang Sanfeng, in seclusion, sensed the energy. Having just bonded with the Taiji sword, He was amazed by the transformation of the 5 elements spiritual swords. "Such marvelous energy!" he exclaimed, admiring his disciple's work. He hoped his Taiji sword would one day match the 5 elements swords, which had received profound yin-yang enchantments from Ning Chang's. Finishing his seclusion, Zhang Sanfeng decided to discuss descending the mountain with his disciple. In the library, the 5 elements spiritual swords completed their transformation, gaining spiritual nature. They now had a joyful, lively presence, akin to toddlers expressing their admiration for Ning Chang, their creator. Ning Chang smiled, holding the Xiaofu sword, which felt like a small, fiery child. "Wonderful," he laughed, imagining their future as revered spiritual sword ancestors. The sword's power had increased, and Ning Chang planned to nurture their spiritual nature further, aiming for them to become powerful treasures. He played with the swords briefly before storing them in his danshan, where they would be refined alongside the 5 elements spiritual tree. Satisfied, he saw Zhang Sanfeng enter the library. They sat down, served tea by the golden spirit monkey, and Zhang Sanfeng finally spoke. "Chang, do you remember the event at Mount Hua 10 years ago?" For anyone else, this question would be absurd, but Zhang Sanfeng believed his disciple was born with knowledge. Ning Chang smiled. "Yes, master, I remember." Zhang Sanfeng sighed. "So you chose me, not the other way around." Ning Chang shook his head. "Not entirely, master. If you hadn't chosen me, it would have been in vain." Zhang Sanfeng continued. "You know about my agreement with Master Chengyang and the Eastern heretic. A man must keep his word. Though you chose me, I benefited from them. I won't force you, but I hope you'll visit them. My 100 years birthday is approaching. You can invite them, fulfilling our old promise." Zhang Sanfeng, relieved, smiled. "Good, good. I feared you wouldn't want to descend the mountain." Ning Chang smiled. "It's my duty, master." Even without the karma, Ning Chang wouldn't refuse. He enjoyed the Tao and could endure solitude, but didn't mind descending the mountain. Watching Zhang Sanfeng leave, Ning Chang smiled, planning his visits to the Demon Sect and Peach Blossom Island. He also thought about a gift for his master's centenary. With no need for extensive preparation, he packed some Taoist scriptures and set off, instructing the golden spirit monkey to guard the library. Without informing Song Yuan Keo and the others, he descended the mountain. In a state of enlightenment, he acted on impulse, embodying a free-spirited Taoist practice. Thus, 10 years after ascending Tianzhu Peak, Ning Chang finally descended the mountain. Since the day Zhang Sanfeng found Ning Chang after he first crossed into the 9 provinces, Ning Chang had never descended the mountain again. While he was curious about the world, his heart was steadfast in the Tao, and he could endure solitude without seeking out the mortal world. The Tao held a far greater allure for him. However, since he was already planning to descend the mountain this time, he decided to take in the sights of the Jianghu as well. Rather than rushing with the 5 elements escape technique, he chose to walk leisurely, measuring the earth with his own steps. With about a month to go and return, there was no need to hurry. Occasionally, he would fly on his sword or use the escape technique. But this journey was not merely a task to complete. It was also an opportunity to experience the mortal world, which was a form of cultivation in itself. The Ming dynasty's territory was vast. For most commoners, it was difficult to leave even their own county, let alone the dynasty. Only martial artists with their ability to travel quickly could experience the broader world. Ning Chang entered a small town. Ice sugar gourds, freshly made, only 3 coins per skewer. Fresh buns, come and see. Thin-skinned, juicy meat, have a look, sir. Get out of the way, you filthy beggar. Don't block this young master's path. Did you hear? The patriarch of the Divine Fist sect is taking another concubine. Prices for silk have risen in the south lately. It's not a good time to stockpile. I'd suggest hoarding jade instead. Ning Chang's spiritual sense enveloped the entire town. He could easily hear the chatter of peddlers, merchants, and martial artists. He simply walked into the crowd like an observer. No one noticed his presence. Some felt a strange force pushing them aside, but when they looked around, they saw nothing. Ning Chang smiled faintly. He saw beggar mothers and their children clinging to each other, the laughter of brothels, merchants scheming to hoard goods, and martial artists seeking vengeance. But most of all, he saw ordinary people, husbands and wives bickering, fathers and sons working together, all living their lives earnestly. A realization began to form in his heart. So this is the mortal world? After 10 years of reading Taoist scriptures in the library, seeing the mortal world firsthand caused flashes of insight to flood his mind. He felt as though he was experiencing a long-awaited breakthrough. Understanding the will of heaven is one path, but immersing oneself in the mortal world is also a path. He murmured to himself as he continued walking, gradually sensing a direction. He passed through towns and cities, leaving the Ming dynasty and entering the Song dynasty, continuing his journey. Along the way, Ning Chang witnessed many events in the Jianghu. He saw injustice, heroism, schemes, and fairness. He saw brothers killing each other over a martial arts manual, and a young man of noble heart risking his life to protect a pregnant woman. Sometimes, Ning Chang intervened, depending on his mood. Most of the time, he merely observed. He gained a deeper understanding of the complexity of human nature and the intricate relationship between fate and karma. Once, he encountered a beggar boy practicing a crude sword technique in a ruined temple. On a whim, Ning Chang created a profound martial art and taught it to the boy before leaving quietly. Another time, he came across a barbaric village preparing to sacrifice children. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed pure Yang true fire, burning the village to the ground, leaving the children to kneel in gratitude as he walked away. He also encountered soldiers patrolling the border who had fallen ill with a plague. A single burst of spiritual energy healed them, bringing them back from the brink of death. Of course, those who harbored ill intentions toward him met a swift and decisive end. In just half a month, Ning Chang had experienced much. His pace varied, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. At times, he even forgot the original purpose of his journey. He immersed himself in the mortal world, understanding its intricacies. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, he altered the fates of many people, subtly manipulating karma. The insights in his mind grew ever brighter. One day, in a small town at the foot of Mount Jiangnan, Ning Chang suddenly realized he was nearing the Demon Sect. He sighed deeply. The mortal world is indeed a path, but it is not my path. In half a month, he had immersed himself in the mortal world, gaining much, but he also understood that while the mortal world was good, it was not where he would stay. His path was the pursuit of the Tao and the understanding of heaven's will. Reflecting on his journey, his eyes sparkled with renewed clarity. 10 years of studying the Tao in the library had culminated in this moment of enlightenment through the mortal world. His understanding of karma deepened, and his vast spiritual sense began to rotate, forming a tangible shape. A translucent figure resembling Ning Chang sat cross-legged in the depths of his sea of consciousness, his spirit god. System notification: you have descended the mountain and experienced the mortal world. Your 10 years of Tao comprehension have culminated in enlightenment, and your spiritual sense has transformed. You have created the immortal Tao technique, mortal world spirit condensation. You have descended the mountain and witnessed the myriad facets of life, manipulating karma and fate. Your understanding of the Tao of karma and fate has deepened, and your minor karma technique has advanced further. Ning Chang sensed the spirit god within his sea of consciousness and was astonished. He hadn't expected that the mortal world spirit condensation technique would help him form a spirit god. Previously, his heavenly phenomenon spirit refining technique had allowed his spiritual sense to far surpass that of ordinary people. But that was merely quantitative. Now, through the energy of the mortal world, he had undergone a qualitative transformation, forming a spirit god. He could feel the benefits immediately. His spirit god could now absorb spiritual energy far more efficiently than before. Additionally, his spiritual sense had expanded fivefold, allowing him to perceive even the scenery atop Mount Jiangnan from his current location. One day, it might be possible for him to cover the entire 9 provinces with a single thought. The spirit god. It's akin to the difference between spiritual liquid and spiritual energy, a qualitative leap. Perhaps even more. According to my deductions, after forming the golden core, the next stage is the nascent soul. This spirit god seems to share some similarities with the nascent soul and will greatly aid my future cultivation. With just a brief moment of sensing, Ning Chang gained countless insights. He smiled, satisfied with the results of his journey. Not only had he gained clarity about his own path, but he had also received this unexpected reward. Additionally, his minor karma technique had advanced, bringing him closer to one day mastering the karma divine power. Though the technique seemed unremarkable, it often helped Ning Chang make the right choices, aligning with karma and achieving twice the result with half the effort, just like now. Looking toward Mount Jiangnan, Ning Chang was certain. By the time his visits to Mount Jiangnan and Peach Blossom Island were complete, he would reach the foundation establishment stage with a perfect state of mind. Unconsciously, Ning Chang revealed his presence. His white Taoist robe and refined appearance drew attention from the townspeople, but his heart remained calm as he continued toward Mount Zhongnan. Wudang's Ning Chang, here to visit Master Chengyang of the Quanjin sect. Please inform him. Ning Chang smiled as he addressed the bewildered Quanjin disciples. The disciples stared in shock at the young Taoist before them, dressed in a white robe as pure as the clouds. But what truly stunned them was his introduction. Wudang's Ning Chang. Isn't that the legendary little immortal? They were frozen in place until the lead disciple finally reacted, cautiously asking, "Are you the little immortal?" Ning Chang nodded with a smile. The disciples gasped, their shock evident. They didn't doubt his identity. His extraordinary aura surpassed even their own grandmaster. Besides, they knew of the agreement between their grandmaster and Zhang Sanfeng, but they hadn't expected the little immortal himself to visit. "Please, this way." The disciples quickly composed themselves and led the way, still reeling from the shock. This was the little immortal, the legendary peerless genius, or rather, peerless master. One disciple rushed ahead to inform the others, while Ning Chang smiled, sensing the commotion in the distance. The disciples accompanying him were too nervous to speak, fearing they might say something wrong. Although Ning Chang exuded no oppressive aura, the thought of his ability to suppress land immortals made their legs tremble. Soon, a group approached them, none other than the Quanjin Seven. Each of them wore expressions of shock and urgency, fearing they might offend Ning Chang. Only now did they understand why their master had ordered them to copy the sect's Taoist scriptures. It was in preparation for this visit. Ma Yu of the Quanjin sect greets the little immortal. Ma Yu, the leader of the Quanjin Seven, clasped his hands in respect. Beside him, a disheveled middle-aged Taoist with a mischievous grin sized up Ning Chang. "So you're the little immortal, huh? I've heard a lot about you. You don't look like you have 3 heads and 6 arms, so how are you so powerful?" Ma Yu and the others broke into a cold sweat, quickly pulling the man back. "Please forgive him, little immortal. My martial uncle is straightforward by nature." Ning Chang simply smiled and shook his head. "It's fine. I greet all the Taoist friends of the Quanjin sect," Ning Chang said with a smile. Apart from their grandmaster, Wang Qingyang, the entire Quanjin sect had come to greet him. Such a reception was the highest honor. "I've come to visit Master Chengyang on behalf of my master, Zhang Sanfeng, to honor the friendship from 10 years ago. I apologize for the sudden visit." "Not at all. The Quanjin sect is honored by your presence," they replied politely. As they entered the sect's grounds, they saw a tall, imposing Taoist standing there, smiling as he looked at Ning Chang. His emotions were complex: excitement, regret, admiration, and a hint of sorrow. It was none other than Wang Qingyang, the grandmaster of the Quanjin sect, personally welcoming Ning Chang. Ning Chang stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Ning Chang greets Master Chengyang. I've come on behalf of my master to honor the friendship from 10 years ago." Though Ning Chang had no strong feelings toward the other members of the Quanjin sect, he held Wang Qingyang in high regard. After all, it was Wang Qingyang, Zhang Sanfeng, and Huang Yeyashi who had found him as a baby. Though Wang Qingyang hadn't taught him martial arts, there was still a bond between them. Wang Qingyang laughed heartily. "Good, good. 10 years ago, you were just a baby. Even then, I knew you were a rare gem, but I never imagined you'd grow so quickly, surpassing me in the blink of an eye." He sighed. "It's a shame I didn't have the fortune to bring you to the Quanjin sect." This had always been his regret. If he had taken Ning Chang as a disciple, he would have no regrets in life. But he was only lamenting. He knew Zhang Sanfeng had been more qualified to become Ning Chang's master. The Quanjin Seven were stunned, their minds reeling. From just a few words, they pieced together the story. 10 years ago, at the foot of Mount Hua, their master and Zhang Sanfeng had found the baby who would become the little immortal. But in the end, Zhang Sanfeng had taken him to Wudang. The thought filled them with immense regret. If only the little immortal had been their junior brother. Ning Chang smiled. Some things didn't need to be said aloud. He and Wang Qingyang understood each other's thoughts. It was good to have this bond. Ning Chang could see that Wang Qingyang was also a peerless talent. Given time, he could ascend to the land immortal realm, as long as he had healed the hidden wounds in his body. Yes, Wang Qingyang had hidden injuries. Without them, with his talent, he would have already reached the 9th level of the Heaven Man realm in the past 10 years. With this in mind, Ning Chang smiled and said, "I've brought a small gift for Master Chengyang." Everyone in the hall turned to look, curious about the little immortal's gift. It was bound to be extraordinary. Ning Chang waved his hand, and two small wooden boxes appeared before them. This is the Jiazi pill. Taking one will increase one's cultivation by 60 years. However, each person can only take one. He opened the first box, revealing 3 black pills emitting a fragrant aroma. The Quanjin 7 were stunned, their breathing quickening. 60 years of cultivation from a single pill. What kind of miraculous effect was that? In the Jianghu, this was undoubtedly a treasure among treasures. At that moment, they understood why the Wudeng disciples were so powerful. With such divine pills, even a mediocre person could become a martial arts expert. Wang Qingyang was also surprised and touched. The Jiazi pill was of no use to him, but it would greatly benefit his disciples. Ning Chang had clearly considered the Quanjin sect's current predicament, its lack of young talent. Wang Qingyang felt ashamed. Such a generous gift! I truly don't deserve it. I had no idea you were skilled in alchemy as well. Ning Chang smiled. I know a little. Please, Master Qingyang, accept it as a token of gratitude. He opened the second box. This is the Golden Wind Jade Du pill. It has miraculous effects for healing internal injuries and restoring one's essence. I noticed that Master Qingyang has some hidden injuries. Perhaps this pill can help. The Quanjin 7 and Zhou Batong were shocked. They hadn't known their master or senior brother had such severe internal injuries. They looked at Wang Qingyang with concern, but he was frozen in shock, his eyes filled with disbelief, which soon turned into a bitter smile. The rumors about your abilities were not exaggerated. I didn't expect you to see through my hidden injuries at first glance. Your insight is truly remarkable. Ning Chang smiled. It was just a guess. With your talent, you should be far beyond your current realm. Why not try the pill now? I can assist you by standing guard. Of course, it wasn't a guess. With his spirit god, Ning Chang could see everything clearly, down to the essence. Wang Qingyang sighed. You're right. After I obtained the 9 Yin manual, I tried to integrate it with my innate skill, but I was backlashed. At that time, Aoyang Feng came to steal the manual, and I was forced to fight, which injured my essence. Over the years, it's become a chronic illness. I was on the verge of death, but now it seems I've been given a second chance thanks to your arrival. His eyes were filled with emotion. Fate is truly mysterious. He bowed deeply to Ning Chang. I never expected the baby I found 10 years ago to become my savior. I neither taught you nor raised you. It was mere chance that we met, and I feel unworthy of your kindness. Ning Chang helped him up. There's no need for this, Master Qingyang. Our meeting was also a matter of karma. Since you have an agreement with my master, please accept this gift without hesitation. The Quanjin 7 and Zhou Batong were shocked to learn the extent of their master's injuries. They urged him, Master, why not try the Golden Wind Jade Du pill? If the little immortal has given it to you, it must be able to heal you. Their eyes were filled with concern. Ning Chang smiled as Wang Qingyang picked up the golden pill and swallowed it in one gulp. The Golden Wind Jade Du pill was something Ning Chang had refined during his sword flight across the 9 heavens, gathering a wisp of celestial wind and the most concentrated drop of morning dew each day. It had remarkable healing properties. As Wang Qingyang swallowed the pill, he immediately felt an astonishing change. His eyes widened, causing the Quanjin 7 and Zhou Batong to tense up. But soon, Wang Qingyang closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, activating his innate skill inside. Wang Qingyang was overwhelmed. As soon as the pill entered his throat, it seemed to transform into a breeze, penetrating his body. His long-standing injuries began to surface, and for a moment he thought his old wounds were flaring up, fearing his end was near. But then, he was stunned. The gentle medicinal power swept through his body and meridians, and the old injuries vanished almost instantly. The so-called source injuries were utterly powerless before this miraculous pill. A hum of invisible energy rippled from Wang Qingyang's body. The Quanjin disciples, who had been watching closely, were startled, but then overjoyed. They could clearly sense an unprecedented vitality and strength surging from their master, and his aura was still rising. Is Master about to break through? Not only has he healed, but he's about to advance.